In a world where voices are silenced,
Please.
one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide podcast with Luke Bona. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
So, g'day and welcome to a big episode of the Bonafide podcast. It is episode 127, we hope.
It's happening.
It's happening. We're going to call it 127. You know what? It really could be 132, but we don't know. So we're going with 127. It's the podcast where we don't tell you what to think. We give you plenty to think about. But it only really works if you jump in and get involved and let us know what you think. So send your thoughts to community@bonafidepod.com or call and leave us a voicemail on 02 91 289311. And remember to follow or subscribe to the show on whatever app you listen to. It really does help us find new audiences. And a reminder, you can watch this episode and all the others on video. You can see us on Spotify and, of course, on YouTube.
The tube.
The Tube. Coming up, we're going to talk to someone that I've known for a long, long time, and someone who dedicated her life to public service for over 30 years. The ex-Speaker of the House, yes, the frequent flyer helicopter politician, Bronwyn Bishop. She has some really interesting reflections on where this country's going, where the coalition has gone desperately wrong. And I throw a few famous names at her. We didn't do, what is it called, Kelsey, the shag date, or we didn't do that competition.
Shoot, shag or marry.
We didn't do that. I mentioned some prime ministers that she's worked with, under, or around, and she gives me her honest opinion on their performances. And it's interesting. It's really interesting. As I said, I've known Bronwyn Bishop for a long time. I've worked with her daughter, Angela Bishop, who is a well-known entertainer.
I
Entertainment.
never made that connection before.
Yeah, Angela Bishop, the entertainment reporter. You often see her on Channel 10. I worked with her at 2UE a number of times. And Russell Setright is her brother, who is the famous health expert. Because I don't know whether you know this, Kelsey, but Bronwyn Bishop's maiden name is Setright. And that's her brother.
No idea. Never heard of that person before.
Anyway, she's a very interesting person. I'm looking forward to having a deep dive with Bronwyn Bishop. Also, we're going to talk to James Glisson. And I'll tell you why, Kelsey. There's a couple of issues that have got me and a lot of other taxpayers scratching their legal heads. One of them is an alleged ISIS bride who has been awarded bail, even though our intelligence agencies and the AFP begged the magistrate in Victoria to refuse her bail because they considered her a serious threat to the public safety. Now, this woman, who has been married 3 times to 3 different ISIS supporters, travelled to Syria in 2014. And you're going to learn this a little bit later on, Kels, but she has on video that she recorded, footage of her training her oldest son, who was at the time 2, on how to fight and how to use a knife and how to fight for ISIS. It is frightening stuff. Now,
That's
she
not good.
has been awarded bail, and I wanted to know legally how that could have happened, because you've got our top security agencies begging a magistrate no. And you would have thought, Kels, after December 14 Bondi, that we would do our very best to protect Australian citizens from people who are considered a danger. Nah, she's been given bail. So,
To play devil's advocate, do we have much context around the video?
oh yeah.
Like
you'll
why
hear,
it was filmed, when, where?
she was training her son in Syria on how to use a knife and how to use a gun. And you'll hear it all with James Glisson coming up a little bit later on. The other thing I wanted to talk to James Glisson about was this convicted murderer by the name of Elisa Schiller. Let me give you some background here, Kels. Elisa Schiller is a convicted murderer. She stabbed to death her housemate over $50. Since going into the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre in Melbourne, she has been receiving at taxpayer expense treatment for obesity, Ozempic, not type 2 diabetes. But the fact is that people inside the prison, both fellow prisoners and people who work there have said that she's gluttonous, that she bullies other prisoners for their meals after she's finished hers, and has in fact been bullying other prisoners for their snacks from the vending machine. And she's obese. She has also received plastic surgery on droopy eyelids brought about by obesity. There are people who need Ozempic for type 2 diabetes treatment that pay a fortune for it. And yet she's been given this because of her self-inflicted obesity at the expense of taxpayers. And here's another one, Kels, just before we move on. This same woman was allowed, it was eventually knocked on the head, Kels, but originally she was allowed to receive IVF treatment in jail at the taxpayer expense because she wanted a child. She has been sentenced to a minimum of 16 years, but she wanted a child. Her plan was to have the child in prison whilst incarcerated, raise the child inside a prison, and then relinquish the child to her mother, the child's maternal grandmother. And originally the answer was yes, go ahead and have the treatment. It was eventually knocked on the head. The world's gone mad.
I mean, obesity-related diseases are costly to treat. We're talking like heart issues.
I understand that. And
prevention is better than
I
cure
mentioned
in that case. It would save the taxpayer money.
I mentioned that. But according to insiders at the jail, they have tried to educate her on a better diet, educate her with exercise, and she is not only eating...
How much time would that take, though? How much money would we be spending on educators coming in, nutritionists, dietitians? These things still all cost money.
Yeah, they're there anyway.
Just remember, obesity isn't something that like people can just switch on and off. So if the solution is let's just give her access to Ozempic, I don't think this is as outrageous as what we're making it out to be.
All right, well, let's hear what James Glisson has to say. And by the way, the drug we're talking about is semaglutide. Ozempic happens to be the brand name. There are other drugs that have semaglutide in them. Look, let's have a listen to James Glisson a little bit later on. And I am telling you now, Kelsey, you're on a hiding to nothing on this. Our listeners will not be able to understand it either, let alone originally being given access to IVF at the taxpayer expense so she can raise a child inside a jail because she wants a child.
Yeah, that's a bit cray-cray.
The world's gone mad.
The only reason why I find this difficult to for them to prescribe something like this, I feel like there has to be a genuine reason why, because it's not like prisons are known for going above and beyond, Let's wait and listen. That's enough now. I hear you, Kelsey, and I knew that would be an argument. I, in fact, mentioned that argument during my chat with James Glisson. So let's have a listen to that, which is coming up. I can't wait. We're also going to talk to Jonathan Kearsley, who is the Sky News bureau chief in Washington. It looks as though a deal may be done between the United States and Saudi Arabia to allow Saudi Arabia to develop uranium and develop nuclear weapons. We'll talk about that. And also a peace deal with China, who has been for a long time now the United States nemesis. But at the end of the day, they need each other for trade. There's some interesting news along those lines as well, coming up with Jonathan Kearsley. And the Man Cave is coming up with the Vice Captain, Adam McDonald. And we've got a special guest, Ian Luff, who has written a book about bullying. And we're going to have a bit of fun. So all of that and a whole lot more coming up on episode God Knows What, here at the Bonafide podcast.
News, something to think about, something to laugh about.
Now, Kelsey, we've talked about violence at junior sport off and on ever since we started this, and I've been talking about it forever. Well, here we go again. There is a police investigation underway. Several people were injured following a violent altercation between players and supporters at an under-18s Macarthur Rugby League match, and this happened last Sunday. Now, the incident occurred at the Oaks following an under-18s clash between the Oaks Tigers and Campbelltown Collegians at Dudley Chesham Sports Ground. Now, Kelsey, a 71-year-old had to be taken to hospital after this wild brawl. Have a look at this.
Why are they fighting? It's just a group of people, and there's more people coming in. It looks like old and young people all just joining in this brawl next to a silver ute. No indication as to what started it, but more people are joining in.
Pretty frightening stuff. By the way, when you were talking...
Do we know what it was over? We don't know.
Possibly over a referee decision. Maybe a father got too emotional about whether or not his son was playing well or not getting enough time on the field. I don't know. I once had a junior rugby league referee ring me up on the wireless, and a rock was thrown at his head and he was knocked out cold by a father who didn't like a decision that was being made, and that was at an under-16s game.
If you participate in an altercation like this, should you be banned from any under-18
100%.
sport?
100%.
For future children as well?
Look, something's got to be done, but it's usually rugby league. What is it about rugby league? Does it attract that style of parent? When Jacob played junior rugby league for the Forestville Ferrets, he often had early games on a Saturday because of the age group. They had the canteen open selling VBs at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's not.
And they had a rope that they eventually, it was orange, and they had a rope going up past around the sideline that parents were not allowed to cross over. And if you did, you were barred. And they ended up having to have a police presence at these junior games. I am lost.
This reminds me of a little bit around what Tim Costello was talking about, that, you know, domestic violence cases go up by 26 to 40% after big sporting matches, right? So I think the question might be more along the lines of, there is this need to fight when your team loses or you have an altercation or whatever it is. What's up with that?
No, I think the argument is, what is it about rugby league?
But this happens across all
Doesn't-
sporting codes.
Doesn't happen at netball.
Are we maybe focusing too much on the sporting code and not enough on men's mental health?
I haven't got the answer, but I know a lot of parents that I saw getting violent were drinking alcohol. But I don't know. Let's
You should definitely
open
ban
it up.
alcohol at under 18 sporting matches.
yes.
Surely.
100%. But there were people who brought their own when they did say we're not selling alcohol till midday. There were people with eskies.
You can't do that. I feel like if you get caught bringing alcohol to an under 18 sporting match, then like that you can't stay. You know?
Yeah, well, they haven't got the money to police these things like that. And it's not like you walk through a turnstile at Brookvale Oval or Four Pines. They're open grounds where you park in this huge car park and you can just sit wherever you want. People sit on eskies.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's open that up for discussion on 0291289311. Now, this is a story that's getting great debate, and it's about whether or not male office workers should be allowed during summer to wear shorts to work. The corporate look is a suit, but in Japan, they have allowed men to wear shorts, and it's kicked up a big stink. What they've actually dubbed this as, Kelsey, in Japan, they've dubbed it leg hair harassment. The women are saying they're being subjected to leg hair harassment.
How bad is the hair?
The Japanese, I don't know.
I don't know. How hairy are Japanese men's legs? Are Japanese men hairy? Let's see what Google has to say. Compared to many Western populations, Japanese men are generally much less hairy.
Yeah.
They typically have little to no chest hair and back hair, and body hair on their arms and legs is usually sparse and fine. What are they complaining about?
I don't know, but you want to know something Dr. Carl told me years ago, and we can bring it up
What?
next time? He says Asian people have straight pubic hair, not curly.
Oh, yeah. This is actually something that went around on TikTok, I don't know, 6 months ago, where people were discovering that pubes don't have to be curly, that they can actually be straight.
Well, Japanese and Chinese people apparently have straight pubes. I don't know why.
Content warning on this.
Oh, we should. Content warning. Curly pube free zone.
But if the men are hot, they should be allowed to wear. But isn't there air conditioning in offices?
Yeah, I don't get it. But it's caused huge debate. And would it ever happen here? And imagine during a heat wave if men had to wear long pants.
Yeah, I don't think people here would care all that much. I mean, we don't wear shoes in shopping centres, but Japan has they have higher standards of personal hygiene than we do just in general. So maybe culturally, maybe this is an issue for them.
Well, men in Australia have been wearing shorts. Often back in the day, you'd see
the dawn of time.
You'd see bankers with a lovely white pressed shirt, a tie, but dress shorts. And I remember our school teachers at Narrabeen used to wear shorts, but they had to wear a tie. And they were so jealous of the PE teachers that could wear more
Casual clothes.
T-shirts, yeah. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. Hairy leg harassment.
You know how some RSLs have dress codes? If the dress code was you couldn't wear shorts, they'd be empty. There'd be no business.
Back in the day, Kelsey, in the 70s, I want you to Google this and bring up a photo. Almost the uniform for men going to RSL clubs was a garment called the safari suit. Now, I want you to Google safari suit, and this, nearly everyone's dad when I was growing up, they get dressed up to go down to the RSL, and this is what they would wear. Have a look at that. It was called the Australian safari
there's
suit.
Princess Diana and Charles.
Now, that's not
at
one, but
Uluru.
down the bottom. Oh, there's Don Dunstan in the middle there on the far right. He was Premier of South Australia.
Like this?
Yeah, that's it. And that was your dress up go out outfit.
It's kind of cool. Bring back the safari suit. Oh, these guys are very toy.
That's it. That could be a banker. That could be someone working at a bank or a teacher at Narrabeen High. That's what they wore.
Wear a lot of this stuff in like the puberty blues.
That's it. Of course they do. Yep, that's exact. That was your typical school teacher banker uniform.
They love. Why do they like the shorts to be toy?
Because that was the deal back then. I mean, tight shorts were huge back in the 70s. Bring up a picture, Warwick Kappa, Sydney Swans. Have a look at this. This sold tickets.
God,
Look at that.
they are short and they are tight.
And there you go. You can tell what religion he is. Oh, there he is. Because he went to Brisbane. That's when he went to Brisbane.
My God.
Yeah. Warwick
Is that him
Kappa.
now?
Yeah, he's a fat heap now.
The
He was
shorts aren't as short as they were.
He was a porn star for a while, Warwick Kappa.
Was he?
Yeah.
I love sportsmen diversifying their careers.
He was the main draw card when Jeffrey Edelston owned the Sydney Swans with his pink helicopter and his wife Leanne.
He was quite good looking back in the day, wasn't he?
Well, yeah. I'd like to. I would love to buy him at my price and then sell him at his. But
there you go. Warwick
okay,
Kappa.
a little flashback there. Now we've got the Commonwealth Games starting. And Channel 7 are dedicating a lot of time. Obviously, they're the commercial broadcaster. That's why I'm not on Sunrise for 2 weeks, Kelsey. I've been brushed.
Oh, Commonwealth Games brushed ya.
Are the Commonwealth Games relevant? Just remember, these Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Victoria was supposed to have them, but Dan Andrews stuffed up. And then they went to Glasgow. Do you care as much about the Commonwealth
Wait, why
Games?
did Dan Andrews stuff up?
Because he got his figures wrong. And he just, and it was a Google Dan Andrews Commonwealth Games stuff up. Hit enter.
In July 2023, former Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews unexpectedly cancelled the state's hosting of the 2026 Commonwealth Games, citing a massive budget blowout from an initial $2.6 billion to between $6 and $7 billion. The decision resulted in a $380 million compensation payout to Games organisers and drew heavy criticism regarding the state's financial management. That's a big stuff up.
And I'll tell you something.
$380 billion just because we pulled out of something. That's
It's a massive.
good.
Yeah, they had to pay the fine. And I'll tell you something else for nothing. Dan Andrews, I believe, knew what the figures were going to be, but he went to an election with the excitement of we've got the Commonwealth Games and this is the funding and we get and he got across the line in the election, and then after the election went oops.
Oops. You know what I think? You know how in like major sporting leagues, if a player does something, quote unquote illegal on the field, they can get fined. They can have personal fines from it. I reckon the same should be true for politicians. I reckon they should have a personal penalty for doing something like this. I reckon his pay packet should have been docked $20,000.
Anyway, I'm asking.
Don't you reckon that's a good idea?
Yeah, Kelsey, you're on fire.
Thanks.
You are on fire. But here's my question. To you listeners, are the Commonwealth Games relevant? Are they up there with the Olympic Games where every nation can take part, or just Commonwealth nations? Now, do you care if Australia beats Zimbabwe or Bermuda or Botswana or Cameroon maybe in the running, the Cayman Islands, the Cook Islands, Dominica? We want to beat England. We want to beat New Zealand. We want to beat Canada. Do we care if we beat the Falkland Islands? Do we care if we beat the Gambia or Grenada? Do we care if we beat Kenya? Is there a norm? I'm just running British North
What
Borneo.
makes those countries any less?
No, I'm not saying they're less, but are they relevant? Are the Commonwealth Games relevant? Are you going to be sitting up watching?
If they're not relevant, that means they're what? Less notable than who?
The Olympic Games? The Olympic Games, where every single country can take part. Anyway, I'll get hammered on that. You're going to get hammered on whether or not, old mate Ozempic should have been given free treatment. You'll be hammered on that. I'll be
No,
hammered on this.
I still haven't made up my mind whether or not I think it's deserved. What I'm saying is that I know obesity care. Looking after a heart condition is a lot harder than making someone lose weight. So, shut up. Okay.
But can we move on?
Just quickly. I don't know why, but I just remembered that recently we put up a poll for whether or not coffee is a necessity or a luxury, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. How'd that go?
I'm just using the poll on YouTube. 71 people voted, okay? So I feel like that's a relatively all right sample size. 62% of people, Luke, guess, said coffee is a...
luxury.
Incorrect. 62% of people said coffee is a necessity.
We'll make it at home.
32% said it's a luxury and 6% said who cares, coffee is gross.
Okay, the reason we brought this up, there was a cafe owner that was complaining about the cost of living and how the government stuffed everything up. And she said, next thing you know, people will look at coffee as a luxury and not a necessity. And I said, I agree with nearly everything she said except that. It's a luxury.
No, the people have spoken, Luke. The people have spoken. Coffee is a necessity.
What do the people know? What do the people...
More than you.
See, this is why I could never take part in the democratic election. I'm a dictator. So, all right, I got hammered.
Just quickly before we move on to listener mail, all over breakfast television and whatnot, but there is a 7-year-old, Miles, who him and his dad and his sister, as one of their creative outlets, they like to make songs. One of their songs caught a bit of traction on social media, so they've gone and recorded it properly. Now you can stream it everywhere, Spotify, YouTube. They put it on Triple J Unearthed. And this is a song called Eastern Rosellas. Luke, are you ready to hear this musical genius?
Ready, please, Mr. Music. That's from Romper Room, by the way.
This little kid is 7 years old and he wrote this song with his dad.
Hey everybody, this is Eastern Rosella's full band version.
Full bad.
And it starts like this. The Rosellas on the twist in the morning mist. And like us, we're flying over my head now. I tell you what, this species is. Hey, Eastern Rosellas, Eastern Rosellas. Look at the beautiful colors. Eastern Rosellas, Eastern Rosellas. Look at the beautiful colors. And I feed the...
That's very, very good.
How good is he?
Yeah, I would have thought older than 7. That's very, very good. Yes, your mum does feed. We've got Rosellas. We've got these
Parrots.
big parrots. Yeah. We've got butcherbirds, kookaburras and magpies. And your mum feeds the Rosellas. This is where the cost of living, and Anthony Albanese should be ashamed of himself because your mum doesn't feed them bird seed from the pet barn. No, she feeds them packaged almonds. I
have said to her, I don't know if you should be doing this. I was like, have you checked that these are unsalted?
And they are. And they pick them up with their little feet.
Because surely they're not finding almonds out in the wild.
Well, the price of almonds has gone up and the price of almonds are now no longer. They're now almonds
Absolutely
for Rosellas.
Rich. You have said on this podcast so many times before that you don't look at the price when you go to the shopping centre.
I haven't finished my rant. Like coffees, almonds have become a luxury and not a necessity for the Rosellas.
No. Well, if you want to listen to the full Eastern Rosellas song, you can find that on Spotify under Joel Phillips. That is Miles's dad. Great work to these guys. Miles, the little 7-year-old, he's quite a good singer, isn't he? He's got a good voice on him.
Yeah, put him on.
I reckon he's 7. Just imagine how good he's going to be in like 10 years.
You've got some feedback.
So, Luke, we got this email from Jason. It's kind of funny. And the only reason why I've included this is because we also had an email from someone later on saying, oh, do you guys have the audio of the guy snoring on air? We couldn't find the audio. But
Jason the snorer.
I think we might have found the snorer. We got this message. Hi, Luke. How have you been?
Jason, that's him.
Yeah, Triple M.
His name was Jason. He was also, by the way, he was on Ozempic. Anyway, go on.
Anyway, how have you been? Triple M are cocksuckers.
Oh, Kelsey.
Missed the night shift.
Take that
away. He said, missed the night shirt. Have you had any talks with them to bring you back? Me, I'm still snoring. Lol. How do I get notified that you're live? Well, Jason, if you subscribe on YouTube, you can put on the little notification button, or same thing on Spotify. But yeah, I think we have found the
Kelsey,
snorer.
Thomas will have it. Ask Thomas for Jason the Snorer, because Thomas used to keep everything. I bet you in Thomas's vault there is Jason the Snorer, because we used to play it over and over. It was very funny.
I'll ask Tom, but maybe we should get Jason the Snorer back on.
No, it's got to be 2 a.m. when he's had about 10 bourbons.
All right, Luke, we also got another message. I actually don't know who sent this message, but they sent us a listing of a 1975 Ford Falcon, but they also said that we should check out on Spotify something called the Aldi Song by Matt Scullion. Scullion?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, all right, let's give this a listen. I haven't heard this, so we'll...
Are we hearing it for the first time? All right.
We're hearing it. We're both hearing it for the first time right here. The
Right
Aldi
now,
Song. Matt
on the Bonafide podcast.
Scullion.
The Aldi Song. This better be good. Yeah. Yes.
That's good.
I've shown you in the podcast the big griddle thing that your mum got from aisle 3 at Aldi. And she said, how did they know I needed that? I didn't know
But she
I
also
needed it.
hasn't used it.
No, she uses it.
Oh, okay.
When we have a lot of people around, because it does, like, you know, the Christmas, Christmas breakfast?
Yeah.
She uses it for the Christmas breakfast. But, yeah, she got that aisle 3 at Aldi. What else have you got at aisle 3 at Aldi that you didn't need? Send us a photo. And how much was it?
All right, Luke, last thing. We posted a clip from our chat with Tracy Tully, and it's had a big reception. Lots of people saying, where are the parents of these kids? Tracy was specifically talking about how she found a child burning another child with a cigarette on the Oval. And here were a couple of comments. Angela commented, I had a burn on my neck from where a male pupil heated a piece of metal and put it on my neck during a lesson. I got in trouble for swearing at him. Nothing else happened. I gave up on school at that point. I was invisible to my mum, so I knew she wouldn't do anything. That's pretty sad. Another person said, we need her as our next PM as she has standards. So I think school is... It can either be like a lifeline or it can be the nail in the coffin, depending on what school you go to and what family you've come from.
Well, Kelsey, we have Tracy Tully Part 2 coming up. I don't know when you're going to play it, but it's even more fascinating than Part 1. So that's coming up. Tracy Tully, ex-school principal and dedicated educator, coming up Part 2 at some point. I want to do a rant. This is real snail mail left in my letterbox. It's junk mail. But what really pisses me off, it's from a real estate agent. Now, the envelope, which I've used to take notes on, was just a plain envelope, didn't even have my name. But listen to this. This really shits me. Do I name the agency? I will.
No, don't.
I wish I could.
Don't.
Dear resident/homeowner, really personal so far. We are writing this letter as we are currently working with a buyer who believes they are suited to your home. My home, Kelsey, not next door's.
They're going to love that man cave. Yeah.
My home. Oh, I thought, why have they said dear resident homeowner? They have asked us to drop a letter to you, to me, and advise they would love to consider and possibly make you an offer to buy your property. My property. My property. I feel so special. We wanted to reach out and see if you would have any interest in selling to our buyer off market. The buyer we are working with is highly motivated. Highly motivated means they want to buy. Yeah, willing to sell means the property's for sale. Highly motivated to buy in the blah, blah, blah area, catchment area, strictly for the lifestyle and convenience the area offers. Please be assured that this is a genuine request and our buyer is finance approved and ready to buy. They are also happy to offer a longer settlement to allow the seller to take their time and find a new home to move, possibly 3 to 4 months if needed. Any conversations will be handled with the utmost confidentiality, warmest regards, and there they are with their photos on the bottom. Let me just tell you, I wish I could name you. Don't bullshit a bullshitter. Okay? Let me just tell you, this same letter went next door, and every other home in our street.
You got to shoot your shot somewhere.
Yes, scattergun, it's called, scattergun. But don't try telling me that it's my property in particular that they're after. This is nothing less than touting for business. It is junk mail, and if you were serious, you might even get to know my name. Don't bullshit a bullshitter. Can I just give... Don't.
The real estate industry needs more honesty.
Like the used car industry, 100%. In fact,
that's going to go down very well, yeah.
This is... I was going to screw it up on camera, but I'm going to take a photo of it and send it to you. It makes my blood boil that they think people are so gullible. I tell you what, while you're there...
Well, some people are, Luke. Do you know how much money we lose in scams every year?
Well,
some people are that gullible.
Can I just say to this real estate agency, sure we can talk, because guess what? There's a big bridge dividing North Sydney to Circular Quay, and I can sell that to you. Dickheads. It makes
just
me...
quick.
If they wanted to make an offer for my firstborn, I'm up for business. But seriously, maybe they'd like me to go to a Thermomix or an Amway meeting. We could do that while we're there.
You done yet?
I don't think so.
Okay. You sure? You got it all out of the tank?
I need a little pill. I need to put something under my tongue, go to a very dark room and lie in the fetal position.
Yeah.
Coming up on the Bonafide podcast, we're pretty sure it's episode 127, Bronwyn Bishop, amongst others.
Bronny!
Well, it's been a while since I've spoken to Bronwyn Bishop. In fact, I feel really uncomfortable in calling her Bronwyn because for many, many years, I referred to her as Senator Bishop, Senator Bronwyn Bishop. She served as the 29th Speaker of the Australian House of Representatives. That was from, I think, 2013 through to 2015, and that was during Tony Abbott's government. But her service lasts almost 30 years as a member of the federal parliament. In fact, she was my local member at one point because she was the member for Mackellar, and she was the member for Mackellar from 1994 through to 2016. During her time in Parliament, my God, has she seen some changes? She's seen some good things and she's seen some bad things. And the last time I saw Bronwyn Bishop was at our local shopping centre when she was doing some campaigning at the last federal election. And we had a good chat then. But this is a formal on-the-record chat, so I can say welcome back. I nearly called you Senator again. I've got to get used to it. Bronwyn Bishop, welcome to the Bonafide podcast.
Well, it's a great pleasure to join you.
Your background is fascinating, and no one can deny your dedication to serving the people of Australia. You worked as a lawyer, but then you entered politics. You were state president of the New South Wales Liberals from 85 to 87, but then you won election to the Senate at the 1987 federal election. And you actually were the state's second female senator. And then you went on and you won a by-election for the division of Mackellar. You were shadow minister under John Hewson, Alexander Downer, John Howard. In 96, you were appointed Minister for Defence, Industry, Science and Personnel in the Howard government. And you were made Minister for Aged Care in 1998. And you lost your place in the ministry at the 2001 election. I remember, am I correct in thinking that you won the Senate seat way back in the 80s from a Labor senator by the name of Sue West, or have I got that wrong?
Well, I was actually the first female senator to be popularly elected. Sue Lines took the place of a Labor Party senator, male, and then she didn't get re-elected until subsequently she was, but not at that election.
Yeah, because I remember Sue West well. And can I be honest, I got on very well with Sue, but I was living in Bathurst broadcasting on 2BS in Bathurst, and that's when I first met you, when I was in Bathurst. And Sue West, her electoral office Well, she had one in Cowra and one in Bathurst, and so I used to see a fair bit of her. So I do remember Sue West, but that's why I've got that mixed up. But gee whiz, over 30 years of service, Bronwyn.
Yes, well, I set out to do it when I was 17 and, well, probably still 16. But what I discovered was I studied history and I did contemporary European history for the then leaving certificate at what we called honours level. And it showed me that individuals could make a difference, but it could be for good or for evil. You had Hitler for evil, you had Churchill for good. And I decided I wanted to have a say in what happened to my country. And I thought, well, if I want to have a say and make the laws of the land, probably a good idea to understand them. So I did law. But all along, I wanted to be a member of the parliament and have a say in what happened to my country. And there were so few women in the federal parliament in those days.
Yeah.
But I knew it could be done. And New South Wales Liberals had never sent a woman to federal parliament at all. So it was groundbreaking. And of course, they'd never had a female president either. And I was the first female president. And that was a full-on fight. It was quite amazing because there were two. I knew that we had to win seats in the west of Sydney because that's where aspiration was so dominant. And so as vice president of the party, I worked out there a lot. And I walked with the people. And when I was running for president, there was a president and secretary of a conference in the West who wrote a letter to state councillors saying, we're just a couple of nobodies out here where the rubber hits the road. And this is why we're voting for Bronwyn Bishop.
Yeah.
Amazing letter.
And of course, your maiden name's Setright. You have a very famous brother.
Yes.
And you have a very famous daughter. And your daughter, Angela, I've worked with her many times when we were both doing work at 2UE. So it's a small world.
It is a small world. And she's a very talented girl, and my brother's very talented as well.
So let's get back to you, because you're more interesting at this point, and you're the one I've got here. Your passion to serve in the Parliament. And when did you make the move to Mackellar and Sydney's Northern Beaches?
That was 1994 in a by-election. And as I said, I was the first to go from the Liberal Party to the Senate, and the first woman for New South Wales to pre-select to go to Canberra.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty full-on fight because at that stage, neither Paul Keating nor John Hewson were particularly keen to see me arrive there, I think, because Hewson was under pressure. And so they arranged my by-election, despite the fact I was pre-selected in November of 93. They arranged my by-election to take place on the 21st of March, which meant I couldn't enter the Parliament until the 3rd of May.
Right.
And that was pretty extraordinary stuff.
It was. But I mean, you were educated at Roseville Public School. If I get this wrong, tell me. But I know it was Roseville Public School.
It was an excellent school.
And then your secondary school education was as at Cremorne Girls High School. I think
Correct.
You graduated in 1959. And then you enrolled in a 5-year Bachelor of Law program at Sydney Law School at the University of Sydney. So it's a very distinguished academic background you've got.
Well, I enjoyed, pardon me, I enjoyed schooling at Cremorne Girls High because I wanted to go to a selective high school, not with the private school I was booked into, because I knew I wanted more. And then when the school closed, I fought very hard for the proposal for Skeggs Redlands to take it over.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to see it develop into blocks of units. And Skeggs Redlands did take it over.
Well, there you are. There's a little bit of background to a fascinating woman. And I think you missed in today's Parliament. And you talk about strong women. And I think of the strong female political leaders I've interviewed over the years. And I knew Kerry Chikarovsky very well.
Yes.
And Rosemary Foote. Remember Rosemary Foote?
I remember Rosemary. Excuse me. I remember Rosemary very, very well. She was a very fine representative. She was a very effective member of the New South Wales Parliament. And it was a disappointment when she left the parliament, when she did.
Yeah, but there is one very strong female personality that's making headlines at the moment, and that is Pauline Hanson, who came to our attention in 1996.
Yes.
And I'd like to ask your opinion on this, Bronwyn. Why do you think the Conservatives have lost so much ground to One Nation? The Conservatives were completely lost at the last federal election. It must have broken your heart.
It did.
Let's start with that. Where did they go wrong? Where have the Conservatives, where has the coalition gone wrong?
I think the real rot began in earnest when the Morrison government, or when Morrison himself determined that he was going to go to Glasgow and embrace net zero and the Paris Agreement. It was a disaster. Every time we had run on that issue, opposing those policies, we won. It just ripped the ground from right under the parties. I'll never understand why it happened. I might know why it happened, but I don't understand it. And unfortunately, when Peter Dutton, who started out so well with such good policies, when it came into the election itself, it just seemed to fall away in that the campaign just faltered. The net result was that the Labor Party, with Green preferences, got 94 seats. Which was sort of like when John Howard won with 90 seats. The thing with Pauline Hanson is that she's been saying the same thing for 30 years, and she has not wavered from it. And there's no doubt about it, immigration is a very large problem in this country.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Pauline Hanson and immigration, because it's making headlines. And Pauline Hanson has sparked, at the moment, new discussion about the resurgence of a white Australia policy.
That's rubbish. Look, let me tell you, in 1941, John Curtin, who the Prime Minister says is his hero and the best Prime Minister, and others in Labor say so, on the 16th of December 1941, John Curtin made a passionate defence and advocacy for the White Australia policy. It was a policy that had begun, introduced by the Labor Party at the beginning of Federation, and it was dismantled largely by Harold Holt and finished off by Gough Whitlam. Nobody supports that policy.
Can you explain? Can you explain for our younger listeners what the White Australia policy was all about?
The White Australia policy was about proposing a language test for people to enter Australia, and they could choose any language they wanted, and if you couldn't pass the language test, you couldn't come. And it was used to distinguish and to prevent certain people coming to the country.
What certain people?
That's what it was. People of colour, that was what it was.
Because after World War II, we embraced people from war-torn Europe, and they contributed enormously to the development of this country.
Yes, they came from Europe. That was the point.
And from a Christian background.
Right. But as I said, in 1941, John Curtin made this profound defence of the White Australia policy and the intent to continue it. So let's not get bogged down in the Labor Party's usual set of lies to try and spin things. Pauline Hanson doesn't support that policy, and I don't know anybody in Australia who does.
So
the reality is, and I'll put it this way, and I attended all my citizenship ceremonies because I thoroughly believed that this was one of the most important things that any person who'd come to this country could decide to sign on to being Australian and accept our values. And I would say that Australia has been a great big melting pot. Everyone who has come here has gone into that melting pot, and what has come out has been uniquely Australian. But there are some things not welcome in the pot. And not believing that men and women are equal, not welcome in the pot. People who believe that they have a form of law which they want to impose in Australia that is not the Australian law, that's not acceptable in the pot. So if we are strong about the things that we believe are intrinsic to who we are as a nation, then it all works.
So Pauline Hanson made headlines for a number of reasons recently. One of them is that she said we need to deport 75,000 illegal immigrants. She says, to quote from her website, because Australia's immigration laws must be enforced. Now, I don't know many people that would disagree with that. Why has it created such a fuss? Barnaby Joyce was even agreeing with her that you could use the medical system. If people are using our social security services and benefits and they're here illegally, we need to have them reported. What did you make of that?
Well, it's certainly part of the debate, and it's certainly true that we have people here who are illegal and should go. And I think the example was given of a government offering a one-way ticket to leave. And if you take that up, then you can apply subsequently to come to Australia. But if you don't, and you do, and you are cause to leave, then you can't come back. The thing is, I think that has become very apparent is that decisions by the High Court have made people very angry and also what used to be called the Administrative Tribunal, now renamed by Labor and stacked out with their appointees, has let murderers, child abusers stay in the country. And people are very angry about that. And it just gets into the whole debate. I think that temporary protection visas were got rid of by the Labor government. It made it harder. We certainly do have people here who ought not to be here. But more importantly, much more importantly, is the question of not bringing in mass immigration, which we have not the infrastructure, whether it's housing, whether it's hospitals, whether it's schools, and more particularly, we haven't got enough teachers to go around. And so now, in New South Wales, you can get to become a teacher with an ATAR of 50. Now, that doesn't make for a teacher who's going to really bring out the best stimulation in students.
I've talked about that when we lowered the ATAR for teachers, and what we got were teachers that just didn't understand the curriculum. Maybe.
Well, the curriculum itself needs an overhaul, and it needs to teach our history and be proud of it. There's far too much accent on other things.
Well, I can get to that because I don't know how much time you got, but I wonder, should we be teaching things in our curriculum like life skills, not just preparing kids for university, but how to budget, how to cook, how to change a tire, how to change a washer, basic.
Listen, we used to have, when I went to high school, never mind you're at a high school, it was a selective high school, you still had in first year to do domestic, I forget what it was called.
Home science.
To learn to cook. Home science. And I remember I failed it because I said you could grill pumpkin and bake chops, I think. But I still went on to learn to cook subsequently.
Hey, listen, you can bake chops. I'm telling you, you can actually grill pumpkin and bake chops. Don't you let anyone tell you can't. But getting back to immigration, because we saw on the 14th of December at Bondi how people who come to this country that shouldn't be in this country can slip through the cracks. This week we've seen a woman, an ISIS bride in inverted commas, who was living under Islamic State rule in Syria, and she's freed on bail. And she'd been charged with some very serious charges, which carry a maximum jail term of 10 years. She's been released on bail, and there's actually footage of her footage that she filmed herself teaching her kids how to shoot people.
Exactly.
Under Islamic law, and I'll use extreme Islam law, Sharia law. So what sort of test then should we have before we allow someone to say this is Australia's home and make sure they want to be contributing Australians and not just here for the benefits?
Well, that's what I've said right from the beginning. We don't want anyone coming here who don't believe that men and women are equal. We don't want anyone coming here who in fact, want to see a different form of law imposed. That woman should, never have got back into the country, but thank you to the member for Watson, the minister responsible. He needs, in his electorate, Muslim vote. He doesn't put the interest of Australia first. He puts his own interest first. She should never have been let out on bail, but it was Victoria, of course, another hopeless Labor state. So we have to be, if you want to come here, you have to acknowledge that we have a separation between church and state, that we have a secular law, which is the law you must abide by. There is no other religious law which can challenge that. And we have to be firm about it. And we have to say that men and women are equal, and you must believe it and treat people that way.
But if you've got the Australian Federal Police literally begging the magistrate, saying this woman is not safe to have in the community, even though her bail is very restrictive. But you've got the federal police saying, we have this intelligence on this woman. We know she's a danger to the general community. How does a magistrate say, yeah, off you go on bail?
Well, it's as I said, it was a Victorian decision, wasn't it?
It was. It was.
And we see so much wrong in Victoria that we don't want repeated elsewhere.
So let's get back to this powerful woman in Australian politics that's making such a huge impact, Pauline Hanson. How do you get on with Pauline?
Well, I'll go back to what I said about her when she was imprisoned. I watched that case with absolute horror, and I made a public statement that she was our first political prisoner. Now, I know what they did to her in that prison, and it was disgraceful.
What did they do?
Well, the way she was treated, about her privacy, about the way if she had visitors, what they would do. She was treated abominably, and I knew that she would win that appeal.
Yeah, she did.
Because
she served 11 weeks.
Of course she did, and of course the conviction was
quashed.
Quite correctly quashed, and her innocence was upheld. But it was the most traumatic thing for anyone to go through.
She was sentenced to 3 years. Folks, this is back in 2003, and I've spoken to Pauline a couple of times on this podcast about it. She was sentenced to 3 years. She served 11 weeks before
She was a political prisoner.
The Queensland Court of Appeal unanimously, by the way, quashed the convictions. Yes. I asked Pauline, does she feel bitter and angry about it? And she said, no, that's wasted energy. You've got to keep moving forward. I'd be filthy. I'd be filthy, Bronwyn.
Yes, but I agree with that sentiment that she's made, but nobody is going to expunge the experience.
Yeah. So besides that, give us another insight. I mean, Pauline Hanson says she's ready to be Prime Minister. Is she really?
Well, is Albanese a decent Prime Minister? No. I mean, I get so angry when I watch that podcast our Prime Minister did in the Lodge. Absolutely insulted the female Japanese Prime Minister, and there's been no apology. It's all been about his rather disgusting comments about Kylie Minogue, which were bad enough, but to insult an ally and the Prime Minister and the first female Prime Minister of our ally, Japan, is an absolute anathema to me, and I've never heard him apologise for that. Is he a fit and proper person as a socialist on the far left to be Prime Minister of this country, destroying our economy, destroying jobs? No. So talk to me about who's there now and who should win. I want to see Angus Taylor win, and I think Angus Taylor would make a very fine Prime Minister.
But he's really hammered One Nation. Do you think that the Conservatives, the coalition, not just the Liberal Party, but does the federal coalition need One Nation on side to get across the line the next election in 2 years' time?
That's why I have said all along that we need, the coalition needs an accommodation with One Nation. And I've also explained how prior to 1980 in New South Wales, we used to run very successful three-cornered contests with the Nats.
Yes.
Because by running separate candidates, we could draw in people who wouldn't vote for through the National Party might vote for them, but wouldn't vote Liberal, but by our preferences, we could get someone elected.
I think Angus Taylor's got some bridges to mend with One Nation. I don't know if alienating Pauline Hanson is the answer, but he's obviously got his strategy and his advisors.
Well, he's got some people in the Liberal Party who are more to the left, and they have different thoughts. But the reality is to get that more than 50% of people, or just about certainly 50% of people, don't want Albanese and the Labor government. So it is beholden to the people on the Conservative side to get their act together, have an accommodation to ensure that there is a transfer of preferences between parties, to ensure that they are outed.
So there's bridges to be mended, as I say, and I think you're right.
Politics is full of disagreements, believe me.
Yeah.
And that also applies to coalition partners.
Do you have a problem with Pauline Hanson associating herself with people like Tommy Robinson, who is a convicted criminal? There's a lot of focus on it. She doesn't back away from it. What are your thoughts?
I don't know Tommy Robinson at all. He's not someone I would ever associate with. I find perhaps it wasn't a wise thing to do, and as I said, not something I would do. So I think concentrating on the issues at home is a better way to go.
You see, you talk about Angus Taylor's advisors, and she's got James Ashby, who so far seems to have got it right if you look at the polls. Sarah Ferguson on the 7:30 report the other night with Barnaby, did you see it?
I saw the clip.
With the dog?
Yes.
Sit down! You saw the clip with the dog. But Sarah Ferguson is also obsessed. I don't know whether rightly so or not. You tell me. But obsessed with Gina Rinehart's participation with One Nation, underwriting financially a lot of what Pauline Hanson is doing at the moment. And there's on the pecuniary interest register, I guess all that will show up. Do you have a problem with that?
No, and let me say about Gina Rinehart, she is a fantastic Australian. She has contributed more to this country than almost anybody else I can think of. She has made her own way in the world. She inherited tenements and she's built that herself into being a hugely successful enterprise and built her own personal wealth. She has chosen...
Well, she inherited a lot of that.
No, not the wealth. She inherited tenements. She had to turn them into wealth, and wealth for Australia. She pays enough. I think I heard one stat that said she pays enough tax to pay every pension in Tasmania. And yet we see someone like Twiggy Forrest...
Mm-hmm. Who's aligned with the Labor Party.
Correct, and he takes grants from the Labor Party. I haven't seen Gina Rinehart taking grants.
It's an interesting point, Bronwyn. It's a very interesting point.
And, it's fine for Anthony Albanese to hop on a jet and fly down to go to a party with another billionaire in Melbourne. So don't give me that. These are people who are dominant figures in Australia. The Pratt family has given huge contribution to this country. Jeannie Pratt, Anthony Pratt's mother, I've known for years and years, and a very fine woman who has contributed enormously. And Dick Pratt himself was someone who contributed. And Anthony has picked up the mantle. But don't talk to me about being wrong for one political player to talk to a billionaire, but it's not right for somebody else.
So where do you see us all going? I'm interested to know from a veteran. I say that with respect, Bronwyn. I say that with enormous respect. But from a political veteran like Bronwyn Bishop, former Speaker of the House, member for Mackellar, former Senator, where do you see us in 2 years? The next election, what do you think will happen within Australia, Australia's way of life, the cost of living, and the polls? Where do you see us going between now and 2 years?
Well, basically, I see what is happening to our country is a disaster. With this last budget, you cannot rip the guts out of the property market and not expect it to then creep out into every area. The banks will be putting people off because they're not lending as much. The customers aren't there. Real estate agents will be put off because they've not got enough properties to sell. It'll filter down in every aspect. You walk into shopping centres, there's nobody there buying. The people who are happy with Albanese, somebody said the other day, I walked into Door Knocker House, they had 2 BMWs in the garden and they were voting Labor. Of course they are, because they're not affected by the wretched policies of Labor. The people who are really suffering, are people who are workers who are supplying their families, trying to keep it all together, but don't matter to Albanese at all. He started off, he says, in public housing, but he sure ain't there anymore, except by living in Kirribilli House on the Lodge. But he's become a rich man, and good luck to him for doing so. But don't ignore the plight of people who need to have the opportunity to make money the way he did.
I'm going to ask you one last question, and I need a one-sentence answer. I want your reaction. Are you ready? I want it because you've served with a lot of prime ministers, and I just want to throw some names at you because I'm dying to know your thoughts. We can go through some Conservative prime ministers, but you mentioned Paul Keating a little while ago, and of course before him Bob Hawke. Bob Hawke, reflections.
Bob Hawke was a formidable politician. Interestingly enough, I think that Hawke-Keating government followed the blueprint of the Campbell report, which was actually commissioned by John Howard, which turned the economy around. I spent years in opposition with Bob Hawke, who was a much better Prime Minister than Paul Keating.
Okay, we'll leave it there. John Howard.
John Howard was a very good Prime Minister. He had the advantage of having people around him. He had a strong treasurer. He had a strong leader of the House, had other backbenchers around, or frontbenchers and backbenchers around, who could carry the message and fight hard.
Do you think Peter Costello would have made a good Prime Minister?
I think he probably would have, but he elected not to do so.
He elected not to do so.
Yes, he left the Parliament.
Scott Morrison.
Scott Morrison, unfortunately, led us into the world of woke, I'm afraid, with taking us into Glasgow and undermining the strong policies we had for delivering cheap energy using our coal-fired power stations and not going into the disastrous policies that have flowed from net zero.
Okay. And someone you share the political border with, you being McKellar, former member for Warringah, former Prime Minister Tony Abbott. Give us your reflections on his time.
Tony Abbott was the most fantastic leader of the opposition, and to serve under and to campaign under, the like of which I've never seen before. He really won the 2010 election, only betrayed by those two turncoats who...
I was going to say you're talking Malcolm Turnbull.
No, I'm talking about the two turncoats from the National Party who sided with Gillard to give her government. So we then went into government. I think, unfortunately, the first budget was not a good budget for the government. Other people have praised it because it was starting to attack debt, but in a way that I think Joe Hawke didn't really understand what had to be done in that first budget. And things didn't go well after that.
Yeah, and smoking the big cigar in the courtyard at Parliament House after the budget, which was going to hurt a lot of people, was a very bad look. I've got to ask you, Malcolm Turnbull.
Well,
come on,
I think
come on, don't.
My feeling is this:
take the gloves off.
Graham Richardson was a very wise man when he said no to Malcolm and the Labor Party.
You see, not a lot of people know this. Malcolm Turnbull approached Graham Richardson and said he wanted to join the Labor Party if he got a front bench seat. And I can tell you this, Kim Beazley told me that Malcolm Turnbull said he wanted to be his treasurer. This guy ended up being a Liberal Prime Minister. Please keep going.
Yes, well, as I said, Graham Richardson was the bloke who said no. And then he, of course, went to Wentworth and stacked the branches and defeated the sitting member. And then he came on in. Now, the difficulty was for Tony that after that first budget and after giving an honour to the Duke of Edinburgh, life became very difficult.
That was a bad move.
We had the empty chair episode and so on. Had Tony been able to stall off the challenge until after the Canning by-election, where Hastie was elected, I think he would have been untouchable.
One more thing, though, on Joe Hawke. Say what you will, he did get on with Donald Trump. He knew how to play Trump's game.
Absolutely. And Joe Hawke was a much better ambassador than he ever was treasurer.
Oh, 100%. And I am firmly of the belief, this is about you, not me, but I believe that diplomatic positions should not be political. It should be the best person for the job. And I said this to Peter Dutton at Channel 7 one morning. He was coming on after me and we had a quick chat. And I said, I tell you now, I said I would bring Joe Hawke off the bench and put him in Washington to negotiate these ridiculous tariffs that are hurting Australians. And he said, I agree with you, Luke.
That's certainly a defendable position. But I do think governments are best served by having political appointments in both Washington.
But why did they persevere with Kevin Rudd? Why did they persevere with Rudd in Washington?
Well, because if I can go back to the toppling of Gillard, Anthony Albanese was leading that push. In fact, I remember distinctly being in a restaurant in Canberra on a Wednesday night.
Right.
And down the back was a table that had about a dozen people of it with Rudd and with Albanese, and it was near the ladies' loo.
Yeah.
So I made a point of going down to powder my nose.
Yeah.
And stopping by for a chat.
Yeah.
And I looked around the table and I thought, this is plotting the coup.
Who was there?
Oh, well.
Hey, Bronwyn, do you remember the famous night of the long prawn at the Golden Century in Sussex Street? Was it like that? Was it like that?
Well, it was a more upmarket restaurant.
Yeah, okay. But tell me, who was there? Who was there?
Oh, well, there were a group of people that then came into positions of prominence with Rudd when he returned.
Yeah.
So, but it was interesting. That relationship between Albanese and Rudd had remained, and he'd no doubt promised it to Rudd, I would think.
It was an extraordinary decision because it got us nowhere. Trump obviously disliked him, and you take that, you take it on the chin, and you go, "Okay, I'm getting nowhere with this bloke. Let's bring in a professional diplomat that can play his game, play golf with him, whatever it takes. But let's look after Australia's best interests first. Let's put someone in that very important diplomatic role that can get the job done. Forget the politics. Let's get someone in there." That's my opinion.
Well, it's when a government is dealing with its major ally, you really do want someone who's going to be putting the best case forward for you. Now, we've got a professional person in there now, not a political appointment, who is very competent, and we have seen that before. Joe Hockey was an extremely good appointment
Oh, yeah.
to the ambassador's role. And indeed, I said to his then wife, or to his wife at the time, that you've just won the lottery. Because it was going to be a good move for him. But he became treasurer because of the way in which deals had to be put together to get Tony as the leader in the first place.
Yeah. Hey, what do you make of this new British PM?
He's still a radical left-wing Labour leader who became a mayor. Let's see. I don't see...
Okay, a bit early.
I don't see any dramatic transformations.
And Donald Trump. How do you think he's going to go at the midterms? Where do you see our relationship with the United States going?
Well, it is our most important relationship, and it has to be looked after by whichever party is in power.
But how do you diplomatically negotiate your biggest diplomatic ally and defensive ally in the United States and your biggest trading partner, which is at loggerheads with that ally, and that's China?
Yes, well, of course, I have no doubt that China sees us as a vassal state. They want our resources, our food, and they want us to kowtow. That is their aim. And don't be fooled by anyone who tells you different. Our major ally and essential to preventing that happening is indeed the United States, and Donald Trump is a very fine ally. He, in the midterms, traditionally, the midterms are not good for an incumbent president, but the Democratic Party is in such disarray that they should be miles more in front than they are. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
We'll have to wait and see what happens. There's a lot to wait and see, isn't there?
Well, there is, but in the meantime, we have to look after that relationship with the United States.
Yeah, it's a funny old world, isn't it, Bronwyn?
It's a very dangerous world at the moment. I mean, the West is under threat, and it has to uphold the things that it believes in, the things that come from the Enlightenment. You know, Europe was saved twice. It was saved back around 700 by Charles Martel at the Battle of Tours, preventing the Moors crossing the Pyrenees and conquering Gaul. The second time it was saved was when with the siege by the Ottoman Empire of Vienna in 1683, and the King of Poland with his winged hussars came and defeated the Ottomans and they fled. Who's going to save them this time?
Yeah, that's a very interesting thought, a really interesting thought. Last thing for today. Today we find out that the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union, which is a pretty strong union, they're demanding the removal of the Union Jack from the Australian flag. They've labelled it, and I'll quote them, a symbol of oppression. The proposal, which is part of their, quote, union blueprint for action, was presented ahead of the Labor National Conference. They want the Union Jack gone from the flag, Bronwyn Bishop.
They're not going to touch our flag. Our flag is loved by the Australian people, and it's going to stay our flag. But if you apply their rhetoric and their logic about wanting to get rid of things British, then abolish the trade union movement, because that's where it came from.
Would you play ball with the idea of the Aboriginal flag in the top left-hand corner?
No, I would not.
Why not?
We have one flag. And it's the Australian national flag. It says who we are, what we are, about our history, but more importantly, people have died under that flag defending us, and we should defend it too.
Today has been all about getting to know you a little bit better, and I appreciate your time. Are you keeping yourself busy? I mean, you were so busy and in the limelight for 30 years. What do you do now?
Well, I'm delighted.
I see you on Sky News from time to time.
Yes, well, I'm delighted to say I enjoy working on a Shari Markson's program as a contributor, and also with Rowan Dean. I chair things like Opera Foundation for Young Australians, where we open doors to major houses in Europe to allow young Australian singers to join houses such as Deutsche Oper in Berlin, Vienna State Opera in Vienna, and La Scala in Italy, Opera Holland Park in London. And they can sing with those companies.
Go.
I also chair the Friends of the Sydney International Piano Competition, which was founded 50 years ago by Claire Dan. The competition will take place next year when 32 young people are chosen to come and compete in Australia. We're a very well-regarded competition. First prize is $50,000, and We the Friends give that prize. So it's a very busy life.
You
and
are
I'm patron of many other things.
Yeah, because I've been asked to try and poach you. Because my partner, Nikki, the Minister for War and Finance, I call her. She's also very well known as leader of the opposition here in this house. She plays bowls for the Pittwater RSL Pelicans, and they're looking for new members.
I'm afraid I haven't got time for bowls.
No. Well, I tried. Okay.
I must say I had a young man who worked for me when I was the member, who was a very good bowler and very much involved in the community. Toby was also somebody who tried to involve me in bowls. But I suppose my love goes to the arts, and that's where a lot of my time goes.
Oh, what a great portfolio that'd be.
But I'm also a patron of many other things, including Surf Lifesaving, which of course is the most iconic organisation of all.
It is.
They hold the very best of everything foremost in what they do. They are prepared to give up their lives for someone they don't know. That's an amazing thing.
Did you know I was a Manly nipper once?
Well, you can always go back.
No, I don't know. Don't know if I can. I was a Manly. I went to Manly West for one term. Anyway, there you are. Hey, listen, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. Can we do it again?
Well, I guess we can.
Well, it's up to you. I'll get my people to contact your people.
My people is me.
Okay, well, I'll get me to contact you.
Good, that would be lovely.
Bronwyn Bishop,
pleasure talking with you.
Bronwyn Bishop, it's been great. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Great pleasure.
Time to find out what's going on in the United States, and Jonathan Kearsley is Sky News Washington Bureau Chief, and he joins us again. Thank you so much for your contribution again.
Luke, always good to talk to you and the listeners.
Okay, well, first of all, let's talk about President Trump waging war to prevent nuclear proliferation in the Middle East. And there's going to be a deal done, we understand, with Saudi Arabia to allow them to have uranium and develop nuclear weapons. What's the story?
And make money for the United States. I mean, it's ultimately the way forward here, because the president is trying to seek some allies in the region who he can work with. And Saudi Arabia clearly is one of those. He's been aligning himself ever so closely with the rich Gulf nations, the oil-rich Gulf nations. And obviously now there are reports, as I speak to you now, it has not been announced yet, but reports a deal could be struck between the United States and Saudi Arabia. Now, that would be significant, but it comes at a time, too, when the United States is trying to make sure that Iran can't develop a nuclear weapon. And what we are on the verge of now is a serious escalation once again in this conflict. Now, this could all change, as we know, over the course of the coming hours, the coming days. But the president has made it abundantly clear he is prepared to go after significant targets. He's prepared to go after bridges and power plants if Iran keeps shooting at ships in the Strait of Hormuz. He's picked out Pickaxe Mountain, which is essentially a giant bunker that could be used for nuclear enrichment. There's been reports out of Israeli intelligence that the Iranians have been shifting centrifuges, which are the core technology to enrich uranium, from the nearby Natanz facility that was supposedly bombed into oblivion and decimated in the Operation Midnight Hammer strikes of the middle of last year, and have been moving those centrifuges into the nearby Pickaxe Mountain, into a bunker inside this mountain facility. If President Trump decides to strike there, well, that would be another serious escalation in this conflict. And it is very hard to see right now as it stands how either side backs down from this, because both are making significant threats against each other. And the concern here, this is heading towards full-scale conflict once again, an escalation of where we are now, which is essentially a tit for tat, rather than heading the other way, which is to some sort of peace deal.
Yeah, I saw last night you've got the Republican Marlon Stutzman, who said he has no concerns with this agreement. He'd want to hear more intelligence about it. He said, quote, the Saudis are really the stable balance in the Middle East. But also speaking last night on CNN was the Democrat John Garamendi. He says the deal is terrible policy and we should never, ever do it. He says it's really, really bad policy, quote unquote.
I think what you're looking at there is the two sides of politics, right? This is an issue that right now, details haven't been announced yet, but it is kind of, in many aspects, in many corners, being split down the middle of party allegiances. The Republicans on one side, the Democrats on the other. Democrats are deeply opposed to largely everything President Trump is doing, whether that is on the international front with the war in Iran or on the domestic front with domestic policies. So, yes, it is not surprising that at the moment, what we know of the reports of what could be announced is there is some clear difference of opinion. Clearly, people are going to want details. How is something like this going to work? What is it going to mean for the United States? What is it going to cost the United States? And what are they going to get in return?
Yep.
If this is being framed around national security, which you would suspect it would be, and economic security too, then those are clearly key cornerstones. But there are significant questions that still need to be asked about what is in this proposed arrangement, how is it actually feasibly going to work, and ultimately who is going to benefit.
And how is it going to affect the rest of the world? Because everything going on in the Middle East is affecting the rest of the world. We'll keep a close eye on it. Tell me about Donald Trump being at that dignified transfer of American dead soldiers returning home.
Yeah, look, a sombre and solemn occasion for the president. He has been trying to push publicly that the number of troops killed in this conflict is far down on others. Well, yes, as it stands now, there are 18 US service personnel who've been killed in this conflict. That has been going for just 5 months. But there is still deep feeling here in the United States about the death of any service personnel. What we've seen is the return of the bodies of the remains of 4 US service personnel, President Trump joining other senior officials, and the families of those who have fallen for what they call the dignified transfer. Dover Air Base, the location, the caskets wheeled out, military salutes. And the president is there to pay respects to them, their service, and to their families. And what he has been saying to them is essentially he does not want them to die in vain. And by that he means he wants to continue with his case that he cannot have Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Now, there is barely anybody on earth who would agree that Iran should have a nuclear weapon. But the concern from the United States is how are they actually going to get to this point where they can safely say that they have debilitated Iran enough that they can walk away from this. And that's why I think where we stand now in this conflict, as I talk to you now, is a real pressure point and a real precipice, because it is seemingly can only go one way. And that is the United States launch a series of high-level attacks on Iran and then ultimately decide to just walk away from whatever is left, because it is very difficult to see how any sort of long-term deal can be struck now. And the longer the sort of tit-for-tat conflict continues, well, the more that is going to cause domestic problems for the president at home. So right now he faces a real gamble, arguably the biggest of either of his presidencies.
Yep. I wanted to ask you, one of the big antagonists in all of this is Israel and their constant battle against Hezbollah, which is within Lebanon. Trump's meeting with the Lebanese president at the White House.
Yeah, really interesting. I think obviously the United States has been trying to broker arrangements between Lebanon and Israel, and the significant concern is how do they disarm Hezbollah? And Lebanon is clearly trying to put a path forward in how they think they can do that. We've seen the president that is the US president, offer an olive branch, if you like, by wanting to return direct flights between the United States and Lebanon for the first time since the 1980s, which is a significant move in and of itself. But there's still, Israel has significant security concerns of its own. What has been mapped out is an idea of pulling Israeli troops out of southern Lebanon. Now, if that does happen, then Lebanon and particularly Hezbollah in particular, more likely to play ball. Again, we have seen standoff after standoff in these negotiations. But when on face value between the two governments, Lebanon and Israel, there at least seems to be some element where they're on the same page and some element where they're at least able to agree on various things. The main problem in all of this is Hezbollah. Now, they're obviously backed by Iran, so it's going to require Hezbollah to be disarmed. That's going to require the Iranian regime to try and find another proxy or to move away from there or to dig in deeper. And that's the big unknown in all of this. It's wonderful that Lebanon and Israel are talking to each other. That is fantastic. But The real concern is Hezbollah doesn't seem to agree to anything that either of the two parties agree to. And that's the main problem. So, look, while there's all of the niceties and agreements between Israel and Lebanon, it is going to take a joint approach in order to disarm Hezbollah and end the problem of Hezbollah inside Lebanon against Israel. And Israel, until that is done, Israel is going to see Hezbollah, and likewise it's going to see Hamas as a threat to its security, a threat to its governance, a threat to its independence.
Yeah. And look, let's be honest here, Hamas and Hezbollah are financed and supported by Iran.
And that's precisely the point. You know, Iran has been backing these proxies throughout the region. You've got the Houthis in Yemen, another one that's causing headaches for Gulf nations, now trying to blockade the Red Sea and stop Saudi Arabian oil getting out, which again accounts for about 7% of the world's oil flow. So once again, you've got a significant headache. So while they're trying to, that is the United States and Israel trying to cut the head off the snake, if you like, of Iran and the regime itself, well, at the same time, the IRGC is still dealing with and controlling and funding proxies in the region, Hezbollah, the Houthis. So this web of conflict, if you like, sows deep. And understanding that means understanding how it works on all levels. And that's where the real complex scenario in all of this comes in. Because yes, you can deal with the Iranian regime and try and take out elements of the IRGC in Iran. You can try and deal with Hezbollah inside Lebanon. But then, as we've seen this week, up come the Houthis and pop up. So it requires almost a multi-pronged attack on many fronts to try and wipe out the threat from any of those three organisations, the IRGC, Hezbollah and the Houthis.
Yeah, there's a great meme that I saw online yesterday, and I'll send it to you because you might get a smile from it. It's Donald Trump and the Ayatollah playing cards, and Donald Trump is saying, "You have no cards." And the Ayatollah says, "I have a straight," spelt S-T-R-A-I-T.
Exactly. And so beggeth the point. And obviously the meme harking back to the words that President Trump bellowed at Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky when he was inside the Oval Office back in the early part of last year. And yes, Iran is proving that it can control and shut off the strait as it so pleases. And now the Houthis are trying to say we can do the same thing with parts of the Red Sea, which Saudi Arabia is trying to use to get oil out. So look, it's a significant problem on all fronts. I mean, there's still the big question when it comes to the Ayatollah of where is he and how is he? Because his father was killed in the first wave of strikes at the end of February. We are 5 months on. We haven't seen Mojtaba Hamani. We haven't heard his voice. All we've seen is the readings of written statements. So there's still serious question marks about the health, the well-being, the position, the location of the Ayatollah.
Yep. Okay, very quickly, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has struck what could be described as a cordial tone with China's top diplomat on the sidelines of a conference in Southeastern Asia. This happened yesterday, improving the United States' relationship with its nemesis, China. What's the latest?
Well, again, this is, an important meeting. It's the ASEAN Foreign Ministers Summit, of which, of course, Australia and Foreign Minister Penny Wong is a part of. But anytime any of these summits take place, it is always going to be eyes on the United States and China. And Marco Rubio sitting with his foreign counterpart in the Philippines to discuss largely what they're looking ahead to, and that is the visit of President Xi, likely to take place in September of this year to the White House, which would be an extraordinary visit in and of itself. One of the interesting aspects that came up or didn't come up when it came to these two individuals meeting, be it Marco Rubio and his counterpart, is that what President Trump had spoken about in his national address last week, which was to claim that China was in some way involved in foreign interference in elections by getting access to voter data, did not come up at all. Yeah. Now, for something as serious as a national address with claims of foreign interference to not be raised at a foreign minister or secretary of state level is in and of itself interesting. It is almost as if the United States didn't want to go there with China. But if this had been a serious concern of the United States, then absolutely it is something that should and would have been raised. President Trump was even asked about this issue the other day. Would he raise it with President Xi? And his response essentially was, well, look, this happened a long time ago, and China is better now than what it was then. But that's not likely to be a comment that would sit well with intelligence agencies around the world, who would argue that China's efforts to exert influence and pressure, not just in elections, but, and we've seen it at various levels, and adversaries do this in some way, shape or form. The big question was it shifting votes in 2020? The answer to that seems to be no. But it is also China's effort to exert pressure in the Indo-Pacific and Australia's own backyard, military pressure. And that is something that Secretary of State Rubio knows all too well about. That is something he is very clued into and advises President Trump on a regular basis about the sorts of issues that China is up to when it comes to that. So look, yes, an important meeting. I think the substance of what wasn't said, probably just about as important as what was said.
Yeah, and just remember, allegations of a foreign power interfering with US elections is not new. There were allegations that Putin and Russia did the same thing, and that we don't talk about that anymore. And the other thing is, if you ask Chinese authorities too many uncomfortable questions like we had the temerity to do about the origin of COVID, they'll whack tariffs on you.
Well, there's the concern on that. I mean, what you would look at when it comes to the United States and China is essentially an all-out trade war. And we know that President Trump has been trying to butter up President Xi as best as he possibly can. And President Xi very much played the flattery game when the commander-in-chief was in Beijing. So, yes, there's a line that certain governments have to walk. The United States would know it could stand on its own 2 feet and talk tough with China if it so chose to. That would not be an issue. But, yes, obviously, there's the previous allegation of Russia meddling in US elections, and there has long been concern about foreign powers meddling in some way, shape or form in the governments of Western democracies. But the big question is it shifting votes, or are they just misinformation campaigns? What we have seen is no evidence uncovered that China or Russia was shifting votes in the 2020 presidential election that President Trump said was stolen from him, nor did we see any evidence of that in the 2022 midterms, nor did we see any of that in the 2024 presidential election. But there is always going to be intelligence agencies looking for signs that foreign powers, foreign enemies, are trying to get involved in some way. That is not new. That is not unsurprising, but it's the level to which they do it that would be raising alarm if indeed it starts increasing.
Exactly. And you've got the midterms coming up, and you've got the people of the United States looking at what's going on in the Middle East. You've got everyone concerned about China's obsession with Taiwan and what is their big plan, which affects us here. And not a word of the Epstein files. Talk about wag the dog.
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea of the Epstein files, the Trump administration is desperately trying to get away from.
Of course they are.
You know, it was there were many of the president's allies were out there in the 2024 campaign saying, you know, let's release them. And well, we haven't seen much. There's a lot of closed door hearings going on. Todd Blanche's confirmation as Attorney General has been hinged in some part on him meeting the victims of Epstein survivors. So still the issue lurks there in the background. But right now it is not something of predominance. Americans are fundamentally concerned about the same things Australians are, and that is cost of living. It is expensive. Yeah. Life ain't cheap. And that's the problem Republicans are going to have to look at as they race towards the midterms.
Can I just ask you, this is the last question, because you've been very generous again with your time, and I know you've got to file for Sky, but in the United States, and you talk about cost of living, in Australia, you know this, Jonathan, all my children are millennials around 30, and they are concerned about the cost of living, but they are also concerned, am I ever going to have the great Australian dream and own my own home? Do Americans feel the same way? In America, is it considered the norm to think that I have a right to own my own home, or is America full of people who are resigned to renting for the rest of their lives?
Well, I mean, you've got to cast your mind back to the great American dream of the 1990s that prompted so many in the sort of tech boom sector from around the world to want to come and call America home. It was the idea of the suburban house with the white picket fence. Yes. And yes, home ownership is a huge part here. And of course, there are huge problems. I mean, you can go to various parts of the United States and some of the other states and some of the cities that aren't as well lived in the towns where house prices are vastly cheaper than what they are in, say, Los Angeles or Washington, D.C. or New York. It's the same as looking at Melbourne, Sydney or Brisbane. If you want to be inside the heart of a major city, you're going to be paying through the roof. I mean, even rent prices here are astronomical compared to what they are in Australia. And that poses the other problem, is it starts making housing on a general level unaffordable. Now, if you have housing unaffordable, then that leads to a vastly greater problem and much bigger questions across your entire society. There's going to be questions about wage growth and not just the price of bread or the price of butter at the supermarket, but the whole idea of being able to afford your own home, live in your own home, pay your own bills, have the handy people come around to do whatever electrician work or plumbing work you need to do and be able to afford those. I mean, for many Americans, as it stands now, so much of that is out of reach and it is only getting harder. But both countries face similar problems. Both countries face similar economic pressure. The real issue now in this day and age, I mean, I look at the same for my children, the idea that they should be able to one day own a home in their own right. And these are the questions that parents my age, parents your age, are asking around Western countries around the world. There are population pressures, there are housing pressures, there are economic pressures. Everything is getting more expensive and wages are not growing in line with that. If they don't, well, then housing, a simple, basic dream, becomes unaffordable.
Yeah, and we saw the bubble burst in the United States where you had lending institutions, banks, and other institutions lending huge amounts of money to people that just no way were able to repay it.
Yeah, I can go back to living in the United Kingdom at the time of when that was all taking place. And you had banks and institutions then who were handing out 110% of the value of the property, requiring a 0% deposit, handing out cash willy-nilly, and people going, well, my house is worth this. Okay, well, we're going to give you 110% of that. And people are going, well, I'm not going to use the 10% on redoing the house. I'm going to take a nice holiday. Then lo and behold, here comes the financial crisis. And it's those sorts of issues that lead to it. So governments have got to look at ways that they can get first home buyers in on the market. They've got to look at ways that they can try and keep housing at a certain level. It's all well and good house prices climbing, but if they keep climbing at astronomical rates far out of the reach of wage growth, then that means for generations to come, housing becomes the idea of you're going to have the permanent renter generation.
Yes.
And that's what will ultimately happen.
Yes, very interesting, Jonathan. Very, very interesting. Thank you so much. You've got a big day ahead. We'll see you on Sky News.
Always good to talk to you in Oysters. Thanks again.
Well, there's been a lot said about this during the week, and I've had certainly plenty to say about it editorially on my podcast and on my Facebook. But I wanted to get a legal point of view on this story, and if we have time, a couple of others. And our legal is James Glisson from Glisson Lawyers, Glisson and Associates, and he joins me again now. And James, welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm talking about the Melbourne woman, the ISIS bride, a woman who joined Islamic State. She's been barred from communicating with a convicted terror leader, a court has been told. Her name is Rayan El-Houli. She's 34 years of age. And as you know, she was charged in May with being a member of a terrorist organisation and entering a declared conflict area 8 months after returning from Syria with her 4 children. Now, the prosecutors alleged that this Melbourne-raised woman travelled to Syria in 2014. She was then aged 21 or 22 with her husband. Now, she's been married 3 times to ISIS supporters. But she travelled with her then husband, Alec Hamad, and joined ISIS. She was before the Melbourne Magistrates Court last week, and the magistrate, Brett Sonnet, granted her bail to live with her family in Melbourne. The AFP pleaded with the magistrate to not grant this woman bail because they believed that she was a danger to the community. They have presented video footage that she filmed of her teaching her kids ways of terrorism, ways to use knives, ways to use long arms. And yet, with the AFP pleading to not grant this woman bail, she was granted bail. Yes, there are plenty of stipulations surrounding that, but she's now walking around free and she's not being held. She attended religious venues. She was involved in extremism courses. And as I said, there's footage of her attempting to indoctrinate her 4 young children in the ways of terrorism, allegedly, according to the AFP. So I'm just asking you, obviously she's an Australian citizen and she had to be eventually allowed back into Australia. But when you've got someone like this, that the authorities, intelligence organisations, including the AFP and probably ASIO, believe that she is a danger to the community, how can a magistrate grant bail? Can you please walk us through this legally, because I'm scratching my head?
Sure. So I guess the first thing that we need to separate is the alleged conduct and the severity of it, and there's no doubt that it's repugnant, from risk, right? Present, current risk, without any of that yet being proven, despite there being very strong evidence. Yep. So the strength of the evidence is definitely relevant to whether or not somebody gets bail, because that's the lens that everything is looked through. But ultimately, when you're looking at bail itself, what the court is trying to balance is the presumption that somebody should be at liberty until proven that they're guilty, in accordance with the court of law, against the risk to the community and to others. So really what you're looking at here is the court, based on all the information that was put in front of it at the application, the bail application, saying that, well, yes, there may be a risk, but the risk isn't so high that she needs to stay in custody in the lead up to the trial.
Yeah, but I would have thought that with the Australian Federal Police and our intelligence agencies presenting to this magistrate her past and what she's allegedly done with pretty convincing proof, because it was on video that she actually took, that the magistrate might go, yeah, I'll go with the authorities after Bondi, for goodness sake, after Bondi and people of extreme danger slipping through the cracks, I might err on the side of caution here.
Yeah. Well, look,
am I outrageous with that way of thinking?
No, I don't think so at all. And I think this is a truly important discussion to be having. And the reason I say that is really what we're looking at here is not so much the potential risk of her going out and committing violent crimes herself. The risk that we're looking at here is the risk of an idea and how that idea can be spread, and then the consequences of that idea if it continues to be spread in the way that police allege that she has.
By idea, do you mean ideology?
Yeah, ideology, encouragement to commit other offences, that sort of thing. So that's really, really difficult. And that's not something that the court ordinarily deals with. Ordinarily, the court deals with, if I could refer to them as simple offending, where there's a person, they do something, it affects somebody else. Yep. Here, it's kind of like a smoke and mirrors kind of offending, because, you know, the risk is real, the consequences are real, but the way that they're connected with the person who's sitting in custody asking to be released is far more difficult to connect.
I'm confused still. I would have thought that the safety of the general public at risk, possibly, according to the AFP, the magistrate would err on the side of caution after Bondi. After Bondi.
I think that that's a reasonable thing to be confused about. Genuinely, I do. Because we're not, look, pre-Bondi, arguably, people might be a little bit more receptive to the idea that there's a risk, but it's on the lower side. But after what happened with the Bondi shooting, obviously the consequences of this, the ideology or the consequences of the risk not being protected against to a level that the community would expect are a lot more obvious, and they're a lot more recent. So it's a very reasonable thing for people to be concerned about, and it's something that they can bring up in relation to how bail is assessed, because it's not fixed. There are often changes almost every year to the Bail Act and to various acts and in how the court applies the law. So if people have concerns, by all means, they should ventilate them.
Amongst her bail conditions was a prohibition on contacting a particular person. That person's a convicted Melbourne terror leader, Abdul Nasser Benbrika. Now, this bloke was released from prison in 2023 after serving nearly 2 decades for leading a terror cell preparing to commit an attack. Why have they particularly banned her from seeing this person? Obviously, they believe she's in contact with him. Why would his name come up?
The only reason I could think of, and it's not anything that I can actually say with any authority.
Well, I can tell you one more thing. Sorry,
okay,
James.
Sure.
Just to give it more context.
No, by all means.
There is a member of this woman, Rian El Houli. There is a member of her family who is married into Ben Bricker's family.
Okay, that does provide some context, but at the end of the day, for that to be a specific condition, right, for that to be a condition of her bail, there has to be a clear, articulated reason and risk. Because one of the things that you're looking at when you're talking about bail, generally speaking, is not only that the conditions would protect the community from risk, but that they're necessary. So they can't just chuck everything on and say, well, therefore it's protected and it's fine, because the whole system would break. So there must be some form of connection or some specific risk that the police are concerned about if that's been included. And more to the point, if the court's included that as a term of her bail.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Of these videos that our intelligence organisations, including the AFP, have and showed, there's a video which was filmed in March 2016. And it allegedly shows her asking her eldest child, listen to this, folks, this child was aged just 2 at the time. And she says in the video, quote, "Did you see how the Mujahideen killed the kuffar, the infidel, with a knife?" And then she says, "Look at me. How did they slaughter them with the knife? Look at me. How did they slaughter the apostate? Show me how." And the prosecutors demonstrated Miss El Hooley's engagement and enthusiasm with ISIS, showing on a video she made of how to instruct her children, one of them 2 at the time, on how to behave in a terrorist way. Yeah. Gee whiz.
I mean, horrific, really horrific. And who knows how long that psychological damage is going to exist with those kids. But that is a brilliant example of why people might be concerned or frustrated with the fact that she gets bail. Because, look, strict conditions are great, but the conditions on paper are only ever going to be as good as the people monitoring them, as the actual mechanism to make sure that those conditions are being abided by. And without having the full bail sheet in front of me, I would have some concerns that not all of these conditions are going to be monitored as carefully or as closely as the public might expect.
Okay, we're all still scratching our heads, but thank you for explaining it. James, here's another one that has us all scratching our head. And you talk about wanting your cake and eat it too. You've got a convicted murderer. She stabbed her housemate to death over $50. Her housemate, she discovered that $50 was missing from her room, and she stabbed her housemate. She's convicted. Elisa Schiller. She's serving a minimum 16-year sentence at Dame Phyllis Frost Centre in Melbourne. We find out, wait for it, that she has been prescribed Ozempic and has, not for type 2 diabetes, she's been prescribed Ozempic for weight loss. She also, at the taxpayer's expense. Taxpayers have paid for this. There are people who have type 2 diabetes who get Ozempic. She has been receiving Ozempic for weight loss. Inside sources, including fellow prisoners and prison officers, say she's gluttonous, that they've tried to educate her on good eating habits. She eats not only her own meals, allegedly, she bullies other prisoners into handing her their food as well. There's reports that she bullies other prisoners who have limited money to spend inside to hand over their snacks from the vending machine. And she's obese. She's been prescribed Ozempic at the taxpayer expense for weight loss. This is the same woman, James, who successfully, for a moment until it was overturned, successfully pleaded her argument that she should be allowed to receive IVF whilst in jail because she wanted a child. Her plan, taxpayer-funded IVF, she wanted a child. She planned to have the child whilst incarcerated, was going to have the child live with her in jail until it turned 5 years of age, and then she was going to relinquish it to her mother, the child's maternal grandmother. That was eventually knocked on the head. James, you've seen it all. Can you understand why we're scratching our head at this one as well?
Not only can I understand it, I'm scratching my head with you. Look, there's a real question here. So there's no doubt if it were for something like diabetes, type 2 diabetes, then prisoners should be absolutely entitled and be able to access medical help, medical assistance.
I agree.
But when you're talking about things that are potentially either cosmetic or looks-based, let's just deal with the Ozempic thing first. There's a real problem there because on I mean, there are multiple problems. The first is the taxpayer, at least in my humble opinion, should absolutely not be paying for that. That makes no sense. It is already quite expensive to house inmates for a long period of time. And at the end of the day, especially in Miss Schiller's case, the only person who put her in there was herself and her own actions. So there's absolutely no reason that we should be footing the bill for cosmetic drugs or any elective or non-medically necessary assistance. It just doesn't make any sense. And the other problem is there are lots of people, it's interesting that you mentioned the type 2 diabetes aspect. There are lots of people who are struggling to get access to Ozempic in the first place.
Yes.
So it's a real concern that people may be sort of jumping the queue, so to speak, to get medical assistance or medical treatment, who are incarcerated because of a horrific crime that took the life of somebody else. It sounds obvious, but I hasten to add that the poor victim, the poor woman who lost her life, has no opportunity to get any of this. In fact, she has no opportunity to do anything that was taken from her. So it's really quite insulting, not just to the community at large and to the taxpayer, but to the family of that poor woman as well.
Thank God the IVF decision was overturned.
I mean, it's just ridiculous that we got to a point where it needed to be overturned.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, yeah. Again,
I mean, if you are obese, let me just say, obesity can lead to diabetes, both
Absolutely.
type 1 and type 2. So some people might argue, well, she should get the Ozempic because she's obese and that will help prevent type 2 diabetes. She doesn't have it yet, I understand. However, the sources from inside the prison say that she's gluttonous. They've tried to educate her on better diet and help her on a course of exercise. She's refused it, has allegedly bullied other prisoners for their food and their snacks, and she wants Ozempic.
Yeah. It just it boggles the mind. It makes no sense, genuinely. I think there's, for those listening who haven't had any experience with the correctives system, it's not anywhere near as, look, I'm not trying to say prison's great because it isn't, but it's nowhere near as restrictive as people seem to believe it to be.
Really?
Not really, no. Like there's a lot that can be done in terms of, and it depends where you are. Some people get put on what are jokingly referred to as farms because of how low security it is. They have access to knives. They can barbecue on the weekends when they see their family and friends. Like, it depends where you are. I seriously doubt Miss Schiller is in a place like that, but it's not the point. The point is we need to sort of draw the curtain back so people know what we're talking about in the first place. And then when we see issues like this arise, where you have somebody who's, from the reports, or at least from the information in the reports, for all intents and purposes, bringing this upon herself, not just intentionally, but at the expense of others. And then for some unknown reason, the taxpayer is funding a preventative measure, and that's putting it in the best possible light that I can. As opposed to the reality, which is there is no type 2 diabetes that's been referred to, not that's been notified, and instead this appears to be more of a cosmetic thing than a preventative thing.
Some of the decisions made within jails stun me. I mean, I'll never forget, and we shouldn't make light of it because innocent people died, but Erin Patterson, the mushroom lady, while she's on remand, they put her in the kitchen to prepare meals. Do you remember that? What the hell's going on, folks?
I think there's a fair level of irony in that.
Unbelievable. I'd like to send a message out to our listeners. If you have spent time in jail, and we don't judge here, but if you've done time, can you contact us, leave us a message or send us an email? If you would like to come on, and you can be completely anonymous, what is life really like in jail? I've been, as part of media, into 3 jails. I've been into Bathurst, Lithgow and AMC in Canberra. But, of course, every time I was shown model prisoners and shown the crafts and the arts and I was media. However, Lithgow was an eye-opener because I went in as the guest of the then Governor, John O'Shea, and I saw things there that were an eye-opener for me. But what is life really like in jail? Contact us here at the Bonafide podcast. If you want to tell your story, we can do that. We don't have to say your name. We can disguise your voice. But I'd like to be educated. And I'd love to hear from anyone who has spent time in juvenile incarceration. What is that? Is it a deterrent or is it a holiday camp? Let us know so that we can educate others. Please contact us here. James, last one.
Yep, let's do it.
Are our constitutional rights being violated here with New South Wales' plan to now look for tenders for an AI system of catching drivers doing the wrong thing behind the wheel, particularly seatbelts and mobile phone offences? We now have cameras that catch exactly that, but they're reviewed under human eyeballs. And they get it wrong. There was a case in the New South Wales Supreme Court where the driver knew that they were reaching for, I think it was their glasses, their glasses case, had to pay out, lawyer up, went to court and won. But it cost a fortune.
Yes.
So how many people just get the fine, the photo and go, bugger it? Unless, of course, you're a professional driver and those demerits, especially if it happens on a double demerit weekend and you get caught twice, it could cost you your livelihood. Now, what they're saying is they've got tender documents that were revealed to the Daily Telegraph today. And it shows that the government wants a system that automates the ingestion, verification, adjudication, and processing of enforcement incidents. And they are looking for AI-assisted decisioning. You like that word? AI-assisted decisioning and intelligent alerting. So there's no human eyeballs. AI will make their judge and jury and executioner all in the one. If you are instantly assumed to be guilty and it's up to you to then go to enormous expense to prove your innocence, is that constitutional?
Look, there are two issues. The first is it really doesn't touch the Constitution at all.
Okay.
And the reason that it doesn't is that you and I practically have no rights under our Constitution at all.
It's a state issue too.
It's a state issue too, but the real issue that we're looking at here is you've got two different systems colliding and neither of them are helping the other. In fact, they're just almost magnifying the issues of each. So the two systems are simply this. The first is when you're looking at traffic offences, anything traffic related in court, they're what are called strict liability offences, okay? So what that means is if the action has occurred, then it doesn't matter as to what the intent was. It doesn't matter if it was accidental, whatever, if it's happened, it's happened. So the level of proof is already quite different to what people would expect from court. The additional issue with that is that because of the way that the Road Transport Act and the rules and all the various pieces of legislation surrounding the regulation of driving work is by saying you're the registered owner of the vehicle. We say that some form of breach has occurred in relation to that vehicle. Therefore, it is up to you to establish that it was somebody else if it wasn't you. Okay? So it's very, very heavy-handed. And it's very, very heavily tipped to one side. And there are a number of reasons both ways, and we don't need to get into that. But for the purpose of today, it's very heavily tipped to one side. So here's the issue. When we have this second system that's proposed of coming in, it already exists in some ways, but the idea of tendering for a much bigger or an expansion of that process, again, there are two issues. The first is, why on earth would we be having AI do this? There are already reports to suggest that up to 15% of seatbelt offences that are camera detected are reversed when they're looked at by a human because it's just not picked up on properly.
Yeah.
The second, somewhat more concerningly, is that this is starting to look an awful lot like the whole Robodebt disaster that we had.
Yes.
So I don't know why on earth we'd be going back down this road again. And to sort of wrap it up neatly in terms of the broader issue that I personally have with this, why are we continuing to have so much of our tax money allocated to the enforcement of things like road rules and the rest of it when it doesn't seem to be supporting anyone? All it's doing is going towards, in this case, some form of AI process tender package, which is probably going to be very expensive, as they often are. And then there's going to be all sorts of issues associated with trying to get these decisions reversed, repealed, and God forbid we end up in another Robodebt scheme because that cost a lot of money to fix after the fact.
It's funny, that the AI road safety cameras, which are now commonplace right across Australia, don't have a publicly confirmed error rate. And you've only got experts from legal people who suggest that 60% of motorists who appeal are successful. Jesus, that's a lot of money being wasted on presuming someone's guilt, but then all those appeals that are successful, they've cost the motorist a lot of money.
Yeah. It's really just appalling. And, it's not just, this is something that I read only recently. It's not just, seatbelt offences or mobile phone offences or anything like that. There's a lot of reporting that I've seen in the last few weeks, I've been looking into this, where local councils are starting to rely very heavily on AI cameras in terms of parking infringements and aspects like that. There's really no need for it. And in terms of the significant expense that I can only imagine this is going to cost if somebody wins the tender and they move forward with it.
Great tender to get.
Surely that money is better spent on things like domestic violence preventative measures, counter-terrorist preventative measures.
Yes.
Why are we doing this?
Or if you want to keep it related to roads and road safety, which is what they'll argue the cameras are for, road safety, how about you build some better roads?
And stop privatising them so we don't make any money out of it when the tolls are paid.
Exactly. And I'll say this is an editorial piece, and you being a lawyer, you don't have to agree or disagree. I don't give a, but anyway, I think as revenue continues to decrease because of the fuel excise being relaxed, possibly again, there's money that the federal government won't get, and GST that possibly the states won't get. And as revenue decreases in that aspect, they're going to look for other areas to increase that revenue. And there will be a blitz on more red light cameras, more speeding cameras, more AI cameras, and even trickling down to local councils. You watch. There'll be stricter public parking spaces. They'll be heavily policed, all paid for by the ratepayer and the taxpayer. And I don't believe it's got to do with road safety. It's to do with revenue. But that's my opinion.
Well, I think there's a legitimate there's a legitimate criticism when it comes to the road safety aspect, especially when it comes to things like speeding cameras, for example. Or any camera-detected offence, including seatbelts, which is that you don't receive the infringement for weeks after the fact. So how does that assist? You compare that to seeing a very visible highway patrol car, and I still slow down because just seeing them scares me. It's like seeing a shark in the water. I want nothing to do with it.
There is nothing that slows you down quicker than a marked highway patrol car.
Yeah, and it stays with you for a solid 20, 30 minutes after you see them. You become paranoid thinking there are others.
Your heart goes like this, doesn't it?
Yep.
I'd like to get our listeners' feedback on this topic as well. Please contact us here at Bonafide Podcast because your feedback means a hell of a lot. And I will share with you the feedback we get, James, because I'm sure you'll find it interesting.
I'd like that. That would be lovely, yeah.
Okay, how do you find Glisson and Associates? Just look it up.
Just look it up. It's an unusual last name, so it's easy to find.
Glisson and Associates Lawyers, inquiries at glisson.com. But just go to, I'm just trying to.
I appreciate it.
Glisson and Associates Lawyers, I'll tell you what, if ever I was in a stink and I needed representation, you're the first person I'd call, James, so there you are.
Well, I'd look forward to finding that call, but I hope I don't.
I hope you don't too. And I just want to say and make it very transparent, I don't have a commercial agreement with Glisson and Associates, and I'm bloody glad I don't.
Thanks so much, mate. It's always a pleasure coming on.
James Glisson and Associates Lawyers.
Welcome to a show called The Man Cave. Man Cave. With Bona on the mic, it's a good day. Good day. Adam McDonald and Kelsey too. Thomas behind the scenes, producing all the good.
Well, time for another fun-filled, exciting episode of The Man Cave. I'm putting some pressure on you, Vice Captain. The Vice Captain, Adam McDonald from Evans Hastings, is with us. And special guest, we had Ian Luff on the podcast not so long ago. And then in the meantime, he brought to my attention that he's written and published a book on bullying. It's called A Storybook for Adults. It's bullshit to bully is what it says on the front. It's, Adam, you've got your copy of the book there?
Yep.
Okay, it looks like a children's book, but it's a book for adults.
It is a book for adults, and I really like the fact that Teddy's a redhead because we are picked on through society, us redheads.
Okay, now we're going to get to the book in a second. Now, Ian Luff, who I said's been on the podcast before, he is regarded as Australia's #1 performance driving coach, but he has an interesting philosophy. And he also talks about motivation. He can empower your staff. There's a few strings to this bloke's bow. So, Ian Luff, officially welcome back to the Bonafide podcast. You're back for more punishment.
Yeah, well, it looks that way, and great to have Adam seeing him on the other side of the lens, which is really good, and Granny Sue as well.
Yeah, we're going to get to Granny Sue in a second, and there's a reason for that. But first of all, we're going to catch up. We're going to do some housekeeping. Vice Captain Adam McDonald. First of all, dry July. You're nearly at the end. How you travel?
Well, I was speaking to one of my staff about it yesterday. 21 days it was yesterday. She was telling me that if you do something for 21 days consecutively, it becomes habit. So I'm not missing it. I'm not missing it at all. I'm just filling my time with other things. Like I'm baking fucking brownies and stuff, you know, like I'm just filling my I'm a baker. I'm cooking good food. I'm going on bushwalks, and especially when you've got someone to do it with, like I'm doing it with my partner, and you just fill your time with other things. And I do miss the Friday nights at the meat raffles. I'll be honest, but at the end of the day, it's all for a good cause. And day 22 it is today, so feeling good.
And you've raised some money, so well done. Congratulations.
Yeah, so anyone who wants to get involved, just go to Dry July. My team name is the Decepticons, or you can have a look on my socials. What's it honestly worth? It's there. Get involved. It's all for the big C word. It's a very good cause.
It is a very good cause. Congratulations to you, champion. And do you think, because Ian, Adam doesn't mind a sip or two of Shiraz. Do you think you'll go back to your normal consumption habits, or are you going to modify it a little bit? What do you think?
I don't think so. You know, there's like, I'll say this, and I'll say it just between us three. Like, I'm going to the bloody gym. Like there's other things to do. Like the gym's been really good for my ankles, and you know, it's. I don't think I'll be. Put it this way, I think I'll put the lid back on from now on.
That's massive. You're going to send Penfolds broke. They won't.
Well, they're out now. They're going to go broke.
Is it Penfolds or is it Jacobs Creek?
It's Penfolds. I'm classy.
Exactly. Ian, just to give us a roundup of what you do, last time we spoke about driver training, the lack of training that most young drivers have. In fact, all of us, I think, could probably use defensive driving. But Adam, Ian firmly believes that before you get on your P plates as a youngster, you should do a defensive driving course to make you a better rounded and safer driver, and possibly it could be means tested, but possibly being government funded like swimming lessons are.
Absolutely. It should be done through schools. Everyone, you know, you get to year 11, year 12, you're getting your L's, you're getting your P's. It should be part of the school curriculum. It's like swimming. Like, we're surrounded by water. Driving should be the same. Like, everybody needs to drive. Like, it's just one of those things that needs to drive well, because, you know, I used to drive around Sydney, and there's plenty of people that need a couple of lessons up there. I'll give you the tip.
We spoke about this, but Ian, you and I spoke off the podcast yesterday. Adam, we were talking about measures that governments put in place in the name of road safety. And is it really about road safety, or is it revenue raising? Now, Ian, you and I were talking about a relaxation in the fuel excise because of the Strait of Hormuz, and they've done it before, and Morrison did it before, and it was the relaxation was supposed to be over now, but they're talking about expanding it and extending it for some time. Now, obviously, Ian, when the federal government doesn't get that fuel excise money in, that revenue in, they're going to have to find it from somewhere else. Ian, just explain to our listeners and Adam what you were talking about with putting in thousands and thousands of extra red light cameras, speeding cameras, local councils raising fines for parking because of a lack of revenue or a shortfall of revenue. It was interesting.
Well, it's a very interesting subject, because the way I look at it, governments don't manufacture things. Governments are there to create laws, create, policies and so forth. For a very long time, they've always hidden behind the mask saying, oh, look, it's all going back into revenue for road safety programs. And some of that is true. But the biggest percentage is that it's a speeding tax. If you want to look at speeding, I mean, okay, everyone says, hang on, you're speeding, you're worse than sort of some two-headed monster. I mean, everybody speeds every day. What we've got to look at If you're doing 70 kilometres an hour in a 70k zone, you're actually speeding, but you're speeding legally. If you do 71 k's, well, then you're wrong, and there's a fine involved. But the money involved, it's a speeding tax, and the government need to stand up, particularly with point-to-point cameras, all the bits and pieces, the new red light cameras up here in Queensland. They're throwing them in, admitting that they're going to make so much more money, something to the tune of maybe $28 million. Now, money has to come from somewhere, but with cost of living, smashing motorists, they're going to say, well, don't speed. Well, if everyone just banned the motor car, we'd have massive problems, because then there'd be no taxes paid whatsoever. And I really think governments need to wake up. The road toll costs around about $24 billion per year. That's a federal government figure. Now, if anyone thinks federal governments pushing $24 billion is positive, I don't know where they're from. They're another planet, because that's a lot of people being injured and killed on our roads. It's unacceptable. Put money into proper driver education. As Adam said, in high schools. We've done it before with our programs in Sydney, going into high schools with a brain injury person, and the change in people's attitudes. Young people have never said, today's a great day to die. Today's a great day, I'll have a car accident. Today I want my airbags to go off. That's why they're called accidents. But we know 95% of accidents, or as we call them, crashes, are attributed to the driver. Cars don't crash without people. So fix the problem, and governments need to wake up.
I mean, we've spoken about this before on the podcast. It's like when you get to school holidays, right? They go, oh, it's double demerits, it's this and that. Why don't they leave the double demerits all the time? Like, I don't understand why just because it's school holidays we're going to jack the price up and make sure everyone's extra careful. Like, if you want to talk turkey about it, like, keep it double demerits. And I find it interesting where, if my dial says I'm doing 70 Ks, like, I'm really doing 65 Ks, because you can tell by your sat navs, because car companies will leave that sort of gap between, because you can't go back and say, well, my taco said I was doing 70 and I've been pinned for doing 75, so the car's faulty. So you've got that little variance.
They're deliberately calibrated incorrectly.
Yeah.
That also comes back to the aspect of tyres, that you've got the diameter of the tyre, where there are so many variables that are going to affect the speed of a driver. And if the driver's looking at the speedo all the time, they're not looking at the road. So when you're looking down, you're not looking up. And people need to look up, lift their vision to avoid a collision.
Is there a limit that the coppers will sort of let you go? Like, you're doing 74 in a 70 zone? Are they going to go, yeah, we're going to pull him up? Because you can always take that to court and say, yeah, it's 4Ks. My speedo said this. Is there a limit? Like, because I've been told it's probably, I think it's 12 Ks and over. They're going to pin you. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth it.
Is there some leeway?
That depends on the individual officer. Depends on your attitude, how people speak to the officer. If you're rude and belligerent, all that stuff, they're going to throw the book at you. But it really comes back to that we've been conned all the time. They say, how fast are you going now? Speed kills. Well, I tell people in my keynote speaking that I've done 300 kilometres an hour in a 60k zone, and I never got booked. It's at a place called Bathurst, Adam, as you know, down Conrod Strait. Now, you look, every year in the Bathurst 1000 endurance race, how many people there get killed because of excessive speed? It's a furphy. It's inappropriate speed for the conditions. If you're driving in thick fog, and Adam, you've done it plenty of times, if you can't see out the dashboard or over the windscreen, any speed is inappropriate. If it's pouring rain, people don't realise that tyres on vehicles and the tread on the tyre is to get rid of water. So we really need better education. And coming back to, if you educate the new up-and-coming inexperienced drivers, remembering novice drivers are 18 to 25, they're the ones hopelessly overrepresented in government statistics. So if they're the problem and it's recognised, and the road toll's $24 billion, why aren't the federal government doing something realistic instead of raising taxes, calling it a speeding tax?
Yeah, just getting back to Bathurst, though, if you're doing 300 plus down Conrod, during the Bathurst 1000, every single driver is a CAMS driver, highly trained, and Ian, all the cars are going in the same direction.
That's 100% correct, and this is our problem, that Bathurst is normally a country road, 60k speed limit.
No.
And a lot of tourists go up there and zoom around and get pinged because they always have the police sitting on Conrod Strait over the hump. It's a great revenue raiser, because I can tell you now, any day of the week they're up there because people have a bit of a excitement moment, put the foot on the gas pedal and...
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you a story. I didn't talk about revenue raising. I used to live in the inner city, the inner west of Sydney, right? My little street, there was probably 4 blocks of units, and the end of the street went onto the train tracks. At the end of the street, because it was in inner city, parking's a premium, but at the end of the street, it was just like a dead end and the train tracks, but there was a no parking sign. But, everyone used to park there because there's no through traffic, there was no issue, there was no gate, there was nothing, there was absolutely no reason why this no parking sign was there. I got out to go to work one morning, and at I think it was like 3:15 a.m., I was given a ticket, a no parking ticket. Now, if that's not in revenue raising, I don't know what is.
100%.
And I think there was six of the tenants' cars there, and everyone got one. 2 days later, I went and took the sign down, and then I never got another parking ticket.
You vandal.
No, I didn't break it. I just took it down. I just unscrewed it and took it down, and then I never got another ticket. But this is 3:15 a.m. in the morning. Like, do these council or coppers or whoever gave us to us six tenants? That is straight up revenue raising.
That's council. Most of the speeding fines issued in New South Wales aren't by roadside coppers, they're cameras. And it's very hard to argue with a camera. You've got to go to court.
Oh, you do. And I remember when we were doing Triple M, Lukey, in World Square, I got done 2 weeks in a row on a speeding red light camera. If they've got a red light camera and a speeding camera in the one intersection. So I was in Camberdown, and I was coming down a hill. As soon as you come down the hill, it goes orange. And what do? You put your foot on the gas to get through the orange, or you pull up the handbrake and do a skid to stop you going through the red. And I did it 2 weeks in a row.
Ian, does orange mean go, or does orange mean stop?
Orange means obviously caution. That's what the definition of it is. And as a prudent driver, they claim that at the speed you're doing it, if it's the appropriate speed in the appropriate conditions, you should be able to pull up in a safe distance. But there are so many variables.
Many.
The car you've got, what if there's a car close behind you? 30% of crashes on our roads are people running in the back of people because every person tailgates. There's no ifs or buts about it. People travel very close, particularly in Sydney, as you touched on, Adam.
Oh, you come to Canberra, it's the tailgate centre of the universe.
There's signs that say don't tailgate.
Yeah, they're everywhere. I've even got those chevrons on the road, leave 2 chevrons between you. It's like Canberra is the tailgate centre of the universe.
And the roundabout racetrack.
And the roundabouts, yes. Roundabouts, when used correctly, are the best invention in the world 100%. When they're used correctly. But if you don't use them correctly, it's a fun fight.
Why don't so many drivers know how to handle a roundabout?
Don't know.
We've got run 500 metres up the road, and there's always glass on it, Ian. There's always headlight or brake light glass on this roundabout every second day. What's wrong with Australians and roundabouts?
Well, the issue comes back to that you must give way to the vehicle on the right, and hopefully no one's coming from the left. We do live in Australia. You have to give way to the vehicle on the right and the one that gets there first. Now, here lies the problem. Everybody thinks they're first. If you're coming in on the left, if you ever watch people's behaviour at roundabouts, people on the right speed up, particularly if they're driving a Land Cruiser with a bull bar.
Oh, yeah. I've got a big stupid ute. I get it.
Unbelievable. Yeah, Ian Luff, and by the way, Ian motivates, he talks to staff, he talks to groups, he has a lot up his sleeve, does Ian Luff, but he's, as I said, regarded as Australia's #1 performance driving coach. Ian, last time we spoke, you said, have you read my book? And I said, what book? And it's a book about bullying. It's called It's Bullshit to Bully, a story written for adults, but it looks like a children's book. And there it is there. You've written something very nice inside for me. You've sent a copy to Adam McDonald. Now, this is about a bear. Ian, it's not the longest book in the world, but it certainly gets to the point. Edward Richard Bear and Brother Adam, Vice Captain, you'd be very pleased to know that this bear is a ginger.
He's a ginger. Good on him.
You've got a copy of this book. What did you make of it?
I think it's very well written. I think it's very poignant. It dumbs down a very good lesson for adults. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not an adult read with long words and text and this sort of stuff. It really just nails the point that he's trying to get across.
Were you bullied at school?
Yeah, I was a fat ginger that changed. I was moved interstate every 2 years, and when you're the chubby ginger kid moving interstate every 2 years, there's 2 things you learn to do. You learn to be funny and you learn to fight.
Did you do either?
I did both. Yes, I did both. I mean, you tend to find find your mojo about taking the piss out of yourself and sort of joining in on the bullying. I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a great time, but I got through it, and it sort of made me the man I am today.
The whole subject of bullying, I mean, when you mention it out in the general public, most people start to think about school kids, but bullying goes all the way through all sectors of life, even into politics, military, and with my background in motorsport, naturally coaching and working with over 300,000 people as a total, you very quickly understand human behaviour. And adults are very good, particularly in positions of power, to actually manipulate and take control of other people, which is bullying. Because once someone's got control of your thoughts, as you know, Adam, whether you're called the Ginger Ninja or Fearless Fanta or whatever it happens to be, name-calling, all those different things create a mindset with people and they lose confidence. So bullying is one of the biggest things attributing to mental health in this day and age.
I took the name Ginger Ninja on. Like, I've got a big Ginger Ninja tattoo on my elbow.
Have you?
Yes.
I love it. See, that's a really positive way to fight back. That what you've done is turned a disadvantage into your power. And once you empower people and give them back their power, because narcissists like to strip people of any power they've got. And that's the scary thing about bullying, particularly with adults. It happens in old age homes. It happens everywhere. It's not just a matter for teenage kids.
Now, in the book, you have a driving analogy, PRND, the gearbox of the mind. Just briefly, Ian, explain what you mean by that.
Okay, all of your listeners would be aware of the automatic car, which is PRND. P is for park, R is for reverse, N is for neutral, and D is for drive. But those words do not appear on the console of someone's automatic vehicle. I say to people in life, you've got to have a plan, you've got to have a picture. If you're an architect building a home, you need a plan. So first of all, before you even drive, you need to have your brain in the right gear. R is for being responsible, because we've heard about people backing over children in driveways. The big one, N, when you put the vehicle in N, you're going nowhere. It's not neutral, it's nothing. In life, I've learned, do nothing, you achieve nothing. D is for decisive, deliberate.
So we've lost Ian on Riverside, but we've got him back on the phone. So Ian, just continue the gear stick for your brain.
I've learned in life that when you do nothing, you achieve nothing. So D is for the decisions we make, decisive, deliberate and defensive. It can also mean death, destruction, doom and gloom. And for some of the drivers on the road with their behaviour, they act like dickheads.
Tell me this, Ian. Where do you sit with all this new technology with driving, like the reverse cameras and all this sort of stuff? Because I think it's made people worse drivers than they were before. No one uses a fucking mirror anymore. No one looks over their shoulder. Like, I have a big car park at my showroom, right? I literally watch people trying to park their cars just staring at the camera. No idea what's going around them. There could be a fucking bomb going off. There could be anything happening around them, and they're just literally sitting there staring at the reverse camera.
The problem is, like I mentioned before, Adam, if you're looking at the speedo all the time, you're looking down.
Yeah.
You've got to have spatial awareness all the time. So when you're reversing, yes, a camera and auto sensors are really great things, but it's not the primary focus. It all comes back like a boomerang to the driver. So drivers must use the technology in the way it's meant to be used, not rely on it totally. It's almost like saying, oh, well, my vehicle's got ABS. When you use it correctly and you don't activate it, it stands for A Beautiful Stop. If you slam it on at the last minute because you're tailgating, it now stands for A Big Smash. So you can have all the technology in the world and a Christopher medal on the dashboard, but that ain't going to save you.
Yeah, you got to think ahead, which is the defensive driving thing. Just one last word on the book, Ian. It's bullshit to bully. The bear on the front, GFY. Why has he got GFY on his chest?
Well, when he went through, and I was using Edward Richard Bear as a metaphor, because he's in very quickly, all he wanted to do was be accepted, respected and supported. And when he wrote those words down in his daily journal, he looked and they all ended in TED. So he said, oh, hang on, I want to be motivated and stimulated. All of a sudden, his name empowered him to say, I want to become Ted. So fortunately, he decided to be Teddy Bear originally.
What's his middle name? Richard. Yeah, that's my middle name. That's a strong middle name. That middle name goes through my family. I think I'm the fourth Richard McDonald.
Well, it's like everything else.
It gets shortened to Dick. It gets shortened to Dick, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
Well, it comes back to Dick, and then that became part of the bullying. So
Yeah, I've been told that.
Right back and said, I just want to be now Ted. So it's a great way for anyone that might be going through bully to look at the book, because I've written it from first-hand experience. And when you've been, as you would know, Adam, when you've been exposed to harassment, and like the people are narcissists, basically bullies are weak people. They're like dogs. They invariably move in packs because there's strength in numbers. And the poor victim is the person that is going to knock their self-confidence dramatically, hence mental health issues.
Yeah, look, there's a lot more to it. Have a look out for it. It's called It's Bullshit to Bully, a storybook for adults written by Ian Luff. Don't be deceived by the look of the book, because it does look like a children's book, but it's certainly not. Well done, Ian. Now, I wanted to bring up a topic here in the Man Cave and introduce another regular on the Bonafide podcast. Oh, by the way, you reckon you got a hard time with the middle name Richard. What about Bona? I mean, seriously, Adam.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not going to touch that.
You've got, well,
I wouldn't touch it either.
It depends on where you are. You could get arrested. But I wanted to introduce another regular to the Man Cave on the podcast today because of a story that absolutely gripped Australia yesterday. And just bear with me. So you got Pauline Hanson, who was in the UK and in Milan at fashion shows. And there you have Barnaby Joyce on the 7:30 report on the ABC the other night, answering some questions about Pauline's travels, her association with convicted criminals. Where did she get the money to do the travel? Who's funded her travel? And all of that sort of talking about illegal immigrants. Does she believe in mass expulsions? And all these questions, they're questions that Barnaby, on behalf of his leader, was asked to answer. So while this is going on, Barnaby, who's on his farm, got interrupted. This is what happened. Let's have a look.
Where she is taking you.
I think, sit down! Sorry, it's a dog. I think that is incredibly important. We see that the Australian people...
Okay, so there he is on the 7:30 report on the ABC, and his dog's playing up. He goes, sit down! All Talkback Radio could talk about this week was, is Barnaby cruel? Did he show his true colours? Does he have a bad, short temper? And most people in metropolitan areas around the country were saying that's the real Barnaby Joyce. He's a bad man. He's cruel to his dogs. Then regional Australia took part in the conversation, and people who have worked on farms and have worked with working dogs have said that's the way you speak to dogs, working dogs. So I thought, let's get away from Gina Rinehart, Pauline Hanson, and all that other stuff, and let's talk about Barnaby Joyce and the way he addressed his dog. So I thought we'd bring in someone who's worked on farms, cattle stations, sheep stations, you name it, for 78 years. And that is the one and only Granny Sue, who joins us now from Yorkie's Knob. G'day, mate.
Hello again.
Morning, Granny.
Morning. Yeah,
Granny, it sounds really good. What are you going to tell us?
You've seen the footage. You've heard Barnaby Joyce. Was he being cruel to his dog to speak to a working dog like that? Can you settle this, please?
No, he was not. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. The dogs, I was given my first working dog at 8 years old, and my grandfather instructed me on how to train the dog. In the end, that dog would be my mate. You are to be the leader of the pack, because dogs are pack animals. And unless you are the leader of the pack, you have no control. And with no control comes damage to the dog, hurt to the dog, hurt to people around the dog, hurt to animals around the dog. So you must have total control, and the only way to have total control is to be in charge. You have to be very strict and very straightforward about what you say and how you say it, because that's what they understand. If they were out in the wild, the alpha male would flatten them and make them do what they were supposed to do. You'd have to do exactly the same to them in domestic situation, because that's the only way that dog is going to be worth anything to you.
Yeah, it's not like it's a bloody French greyhound that sits in someone's handbag.
Greyhounds don't live in handbags.
You know what I mean. Like, you're not like one of these designer dogs.
Yeah, designer
that people carry around in their handbags and go and have a latte with Susan from down the block. Like,
and the dog's name's
Fluffy.
Dog. And the dog's name's Fluffy.
Yeah. Do working dogs have names? Like, do you name your working dog?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, right.
Have you ever watched a program called Muster Dogs?
Yeah, great show.
Well, there you go.
Great show.
Now, those dogs have to learn how to work, how to do everything. And I don't care whether it's the Chihuahua in the handbag, the poodle on your lap, or the blue heeler out in the paddock. It is all the same. If you don't have a little bit of control over that dog, what is the use? Why would you have a yapping shit that everybody hates and nobody wants to have anything to do with? Where if you've got control, that dog doesn't do that.
That's right.
Ian Luff, have you ever owned working dogs?
Look, I've had 4 dogs at one stage, 2 German Shepherds and 2 Weimaraners, because we lived on acreage. And those dogs were trained with voice training. And it's what Granny Sue just said. It's not the words you use, it's the tone in your voice. If you are sitting back there going, oh, hello, baby, come to me. You know, that's all lovey-dovey. But if you want to have discipline with the dog and you want the dog to sit down, you go like down. And it's the tone of the voice that the dog understands. Our dogs were perfectly behaved, and we had a sign on our front gate, warning, dogs patrol property, sound horn for assistance. So people would pull up and toot the horn, and guess what? The dogs were trained to run up, so 4 dogs would turn up. Max, the big German Shepherd, would just sit behind the gate and just stare people down. No one ever came in that unlocked gate. They'd ring us and say, can you please get your dogs away? And they didn't do anything. They just stared at people like, come near us and you'll have a big issue. So it really is, Granny said, it's really people have to understand dogs. They don't understand so much the wording, but they do understand if you're upset. And what Barnaby Joyce did, seriously, it was absolutely nothing. But all the tree huggers, all the people there, like I mentioned in my book, seriously, get a life. Barnaby was only doing a job so the interview wouldn't fall off the rails. I'm
not saying that the questions about Tommy Robinson and the important questions about immigration policy and Gina Rinehart, I wanted to get away from that on this particular podcast, the Man Cave podcast, because we like to have a bit of fun. But I couldn't believe that what really dominated Talkback Radio this week was Barnaby Joyce's attitude towards his dog.
Oh, I can believe it.
Can you really? You
yeah.
So can I.
What was it on the ABC?
Yeah.
I rest my case.
Yeah, I'm with you, Adam. It's sort of, like let's have a vanilla milkshake and suck through 2 straws. I mean, get a life. I mean, these people sort of, you wonder, sort of, they're 2 parts short of a picnic. I mean, I call it the way it is, like I said before about, people speeding. I mean, people really have to embrace life as a whole. We've got a wonderful country that we live in under the one flag, which is we'll go with that one later. And people have to understand that we have to get on with people and not just pick faults, because when people start picking faults, as we said, Luke, that then comes back to the people picking on someone. That is a form of bullying. And it's, like we said, it's rife all the time.
Granny Sue, did you experience bullying in your life or your boys?
Yes, of course I did.
What happened?
Well, when I went to boarding school, I was the shy bush kid and didn't know much about anything because I'd never been to school except when I went to boarding school, because we did homeschooling correspondence. I was a redhead. So, of course, I got into a lot of trouble, yes.
And see, people say, the people naturally think people with red hair have a temper. We don't have a temper. We're just fucking picked on all the time. That's what it is.
And we don't put up with shit.
Not anymore. No.
No, not anymore. I learnt that very quickly when I went to boarding school.
Why do Australians pick on redheads?
I have no idea.
It might be jealousy. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Red hair's a superpower. Red hair's a superpower. I've been told if you take like paracetamol and stuff like that, these sort of painkillers, they don't work on redheads. And I've spoken to doctors about this, about painkillers. They said no, redheads have a very high tolerance to these medications working.
It's not just that; it's anaesthetic.
Anesthetics, exactly right. Like all through my ankles. The doctor's saying, can you feel it? I'm like, yes, I can. And it's because you're a redhead. It doesn't work. It's just like our superpower, apart from the sun's our kryptonite.
I wonder if that's why all the years that I drank, I never ever had a hangover. Maybe that's why, because I was a redhead.
Superpower, Ian?
Yeah, I don't get them either.
That's why I made Edward Richard Bear or Ted. That's why I made him have red hair, because I knew that it would create a lot of angst in society, because there's a lot of redheaded people. But again, if you're picking on a redhead, if you're picking on someone with freckles or someone, that's got other bodily defects, again, this comes back, it's bullshit to bully. People have to understand, yes, I'm pushing the book of what it's about, but I've even copped a lot of criticism about the title of the book, because as you can see on the front, Luke, that we've had to sort of make a little amendment to the word bullshit, and that's an Australian vernacular, that's come way out from the bush. People sit back and say, I'm not going to cop any more bullshit. So it's quite acceptable. Like if you think back to the old Holden type of ads and bits and pieces, we use a lot of Australianisms, and the word bullshit is an Australianism. So we need to embrace it and get people to understand that picking on other people is a form of distress for that person, and that's probably when that person needs support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, Granny Sue, I'll let you get back to your day. Thank you so much for dropping in and giving us some expertise on addressing working dogs, and we'll get you back on again soon, because we've had a bit of feedback about your predicament, your future living predicament, and we'll talk.
Oh, right, okay.
So we'll do that very, very shortly. But we love you very much, and thank you so much.
That's all right. No trouble at all. I
Thanks,
quite
Granny.
enjoy these little chats. Gives me something else to think about for the day.
One last question about Pauline Hanson, speaking of redheads.
Oh, yes.
On the 7:30 report, they seem to think it was a big issue that Gina Rinehart is underwriting financially a lot of Pauline Hanson's activity. Now, down the track, there is what's called a pecuniary interest register, and every dollar that's donated to Pauline Hanson as a political donation will have to be transparent. So we'll find out sooner or later. Do you care if Gina Rinehart is donating and helping One Nation? I'll ask you first of all, Granny Sue, before I let you go.
I don't. I think she's a fantastic woman. She's done an awful lot for Australia and with her money and everything else. And I just think she's an amazing woman. And if she can help get Pauline over the hill, mate, I'm all for it.
All right, Granny Sue, we'll talk again soon, darling.
All right. Thanks, Luke. Talk
Thanks,
to you later.
Granny.
Bye, Adam. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
So, Ian Luff, what have we learnt today?
Well, what we've learned today, what I've learned today is sort of, I didn't realise sort of, with Granny Sue and Adam, that they're redheads, and we've learnt that maybe redheads are the people who are empowering us. And then you look at Pauline Hanson, she's a redhead. So there's a bit of a trait going on here.
What do they say? The meek will inherit the earth?
Look, I mean, all of the above, but yeah, look, I mean, we've learned today that governments are very good at doing nothing, very good at sitting on their hands, good at promising the world and delivering the atlas. And as we said, governments don't manufacture things. All governments do is create taxes, and now they're creating more speeding taxes for revenue that they claim is not revenue. They're saying it's going into safety. Well, let's be more transparent. You talk about pecuniary interest. I think governments need to be more honest, and maybe the ABC needs to be more honest as well.
Now, Ian Luff, every guest we get on the Man Cave, we ask this question. Is there a toy that you had from your childhood that you wish you still had? Maybe in your man cave or just hanging around, something that you treasured that is no longer with you? Because this is where Adam McDonald excels. Ian, what have you got?
Well, 100%. Very easy answer. When I was very, very young, probably 4 years of age, maybe pushing on 5, Christmas time came, and obviously Father Christmas was a wonderful person, still is, for all those little kids.
Thank you.
And I got myself a Cyclops red Chev pedal car. Now, back then, in my era, it was made of metal. It had chrome bumper bars. It had a chrome grille in the shape of a Chevrolet, white metal steering wheel and little pedals. And I can remember vividly being towed up our driveway in Bruce Street, Essendon in Victoria. My dad had a Bradford. He put a tow rope out the back and he hooked it on. And that first driving a motor vehicle up the driveway, it's all on standard 8 video footage somewhere hidden in the archives. But that wind in the face, that freedom, that little Chevrolet red Chev, as I called it, that was probably the biggest motivator that influenced the way I thought and got me into motoring. So I'd love to have it just purely as a decoration in the garage. But Adam, I'm sure you've probably come up with a few metal
Well,
metal
hang
pedal
on.
cars.
Due to the magic of podcasting, Adam, we have a photo of Ian with that pedal car
What a wonderful photo.
on Christmas Day, 1956. We think it's 1956. And here it is. How good is that photo?
It's such a sign of the times. Like you got Ian sitting in the pedal car, then his sister with her toy oven, because that's what you were giving kids. You know, the boys get the cars, the girls get the ovens. With the pedal cars, the Cyclops pedal car is still the king of the mountain. It's still the most sought after. It's still the most collectible because it was the most well made. Now, Cyclops was a factory in Sydney, and they made a lot of things out of pressed metal. They made prams, like prams for babies. I bought one actually not long ago, the Pedigree pram, and the guy that bought it, he said, I don't want the pram, I want the wheels to put on my pedal car because they were the same wheels. I think he paid about $80 a wheel, which I thought was a good price, but just he only wanted it, like he literally threw the pram away and wanted the Cyclops wheels to put on his pedal car. These pedal cars, you know, they're one of those things that were always used, and they're dinged up and they're bashed around, they're broken. So to get one in original condition is very hard, and you'll be paying, you know, I reckon you'll be paying thousands of dollars to get one in original condition. You can get one that's restored, but you don't really want one that's restored because if you're going to restore it, you want to restore it yourself. The pedal cars came around, and the first pedal cars that were made in Australia were made by Holden. And these Holden pedal cars are very rare. The Holden Motor Company, GM Motors, started making washing machines, right? That's when they first started. Then they moved into pedal cars, and they made some pedal cars. And then they thought, you know what? If we make a little car, let's make real cars. And that's how Holden was born. Segue, speaking about Holdens, online at the moment, Evans Hastings Values and Auctioneers, we've got an everything Holden sale. We've got some motor cars, we've got a Monaro, we've got an LH Tirana, we've got a station wagon. But the most interesting thing about my sale is we've got spare parts. We've got original spare parts. We've got WB Statesman tail lights, never seen the light of day. So we've got all these early brand news is what I call them. They're brand new. They've never seen the light of day. Evans Hastings Value and Auctioneers, have a look. It's a wonderful sale. It's called the Everything Holden Sale.
You need to log on, Ian. You'd love it.
Yeah, have a look. There's some wonderful motor cars there.
What do we say if don't go looking because we'll end up coming out buying it? I'm a great believer that a lot of that nostalgic stuff is a huge comeback, as you know, Adam, because you can't buy them anymore. And if you can,
exactly right.
If you can, it's tell them the price, son. And
that's exactly right. But
I mean, some of those cars that you've mentioned, the dollar value would reinvestment is much better than the superannuation.
Absolutely. Like there's an FC special station wagon. It's absolutely beautiful. It's red and white. It's 1958 in original condition. It's just wonderful. Have a look. It's well worth having a look. Even just to have a look and get not those nostalgic feelings going through your body. I remember granddad had one of these, and there's some modern ones. You know, there's HSV Senator. We've got all sorts. Have a look.
Evans Hastings. Let's just finish with another trip down memory lane, Vice Captain. What were kids getting on Christmas Day in 1956?
Mr. Potato Head was one of them.
Not that old.
That's how old Mr. Potato Head. But the most interesting one, and it came out in 1956, was Play-Doh. Now, Play-Doh was invented as a wallpaper cleaner.
Really?
That's what it was invented for. And you'd rub it down your wallpaper until it take all the mold and mildew off. They soon realised you can manipulate it, you can build stuff out of it, you can make all these funny shapes. So the number one in 1956 was Play-Doh. Interesting. And it's still, I don't know, is it still around today? I'm not sure. Kids still eat it? I don't know.
It's probably banned.
Oh, probably.
You've actually got Ted involved there when you said the word delete head.
Yes.
Ian Luff, Luff Motivation. Look him up. Just go online, look up Ian Luff. Always good to talk to you, mate. Thank you for being part of the Bonafide podcast again here on the Man Cave. Hope you've had some fun.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And Vice Captain Adam McDonald, Evans Hastings, good luck with the rest of Dry July.
Yes, get involved in Dry July, folks. Decepticons, or have a look at my Instas. What's it honestly worth? There's all sorts of stuff there. If you have a look, I just posted a video of Wonder Boy at the gym. His fighting skills are coming along nice and fast. Have a look.
Good on you. See you next time, folks. Thank you for that, Adam McDonald. Thank you so much for listening. Just remember, you can contact us 02 9128 9311, community@bonafidepod.com. Leave us a voice message. share, tell everyone about it, because we love your company and we love your input. And thank you so much for listening. We hope we can hang on to you because we need all the listeners. And we'll see you. I'll see you at the Casino Truck Show.
And do you have a thought of the day?
Kelsey, if I had $1 for every woman who found me repulsive and unattractive, they would eventually find me attractive.
I don't get it.
Because I would have a lot of dollars. Oh, jeez.
Okay.
Well, over 20 million women would find me unattractive. And if I had $1 for every one of them, eventually they'd find me attractive.
Oh, right, because you would have so much money.
Can I just say one more thing? How do they expect me to soar like an eagle when I'm surrounded by turkeys?
Yes, I got it. Goodbye.